was the neat thing about the fun half. It was a fun vibe. Good to see you all, and of course we started this show with the Rational National. Go check out the Rational National, and also I would recommend watching Zateo's entire interview with Miss Rachel because it's very good. And David's totally right. It's like it's a good thing that people are using their platforms in any way, shape, or form to bring attention to what is taking place. So that's also very, very good. Also, a shout out to Depressed Progressive again. Thank you for resubscribing. Appreciate that. Also, Political Poppy. Thanks for resubscribing as well. And Pendulous Dragon. It's similar to the name Pendulum. Is there as well. Jeremy Shahill was an amazing interview. Oh, did Jeremy Shahill come on the Majority Report today? I'm a big fan of his work. I think he does great stuff. That's really, really cool. Good stuff. Lance, what are you going to cover today? Going to cover world news. Obviously, there's a lot of things going on. I missed it yesterday, so I didn't get to talk about Keir Starmer's little slip to the right, or barreling, or just running like the Kool-Aid man through the walls of immigration. So I was going to talk a little bit about that, and then also get into all of the premium slop. Tis a day of premium slop. Hopefully, we'll see. But yeah, the strategy hasn't worked yet. I've yet to see a single centrist or center-right lib try to go further right and appeal to the right in the process. Instead, they just alienate their own vibes. That seems to be what happens. I need woke nonsense. Yes, we will talk about the woke nonsense. I eventually did want to cover the Goonernomicon2. It's just so long to be sitting down for an hour and like 40-minute video on Grummz. When I already know what a shitty person Grummz is, through and through. But apparently one of the newest revelations is that, I don't know if y'all know, Grummz has been making a game for like almost 9 years now. And unfortunately, some of the people who have donated to his game project are now starting to age into a time when they don't know if they'll live to see whether or not the game comes out. So there's that. Omega Star, thank you for giving a tier 1 sub to Jack Hectic. Appreciate that. Yeah, Lance, are you watching The Studio? I am watching The Studio. I've enjoyed it. I thought it was a good critique on the film industry, and it's all true. It's actually much worse than The Studio makes it look. The Studio is still a nice fantasy version of Hollywood. It's actually more gross and cutthroat than what you see in The Studio. Yeah, to be. Lance, you know fuck all about how the British are having to cope with immigration. That's true. I don't live there, so I can't say. I have not lived in Britain. I haven't actually even visited Britain. So I'll have to simply go on news and news reports and that kind of stuff. But I genuinely think no matter where the argument is being made that a lot of the problems in society are being caused primarily by immigration, it turns out to mostly be fear-mongering to cover up what, billionaires are actually doing. More than, like, I think billionaires in Britain and multinational corporations in Britain are probably doing more to affect and ruin the lives of British people than immigrants are. So I think it's kind of a global reality, to be totally honest. Yeah. I lost place on Majority Report by 1 second. Well, apparently they just rated into me, so haha. Tis my report to have a majority on. Yeah.
Broadcasting live from the Fuck Polymarket Studios, it's Hard News with your host Lance of the Serfs.
And Brexit. Yeah, Brexit worked out. This is my understanding. Everyone loves it, and it's only done good things. Adam ruins his own rep. I don't normally start with drama news or tea, and probably for good reason. I normally cover at the very start of my streams world news, Indigenous news, Canadian news, stuff like that. And I didn't want to talk about this story at all, except I got a flood of emails over the weekend from people asking, Lance, are you going to speak out against Adam Conover? You seem to be completely fine promoting him and having him on your show when it's convenient for you, and you probably reap all the benefits from that, you bourgeoisie fuck. And I was like, oh damn, all right, well, what did Adam do? And then luckily, before I had to even learn, a friend of the show, Rebecca Watson, Skepchick, put out a video. So I'm curious, what did Adam do? What's the tea?
Hey, remember Adam Ruins Everything? It was that show starring Adam Conover. Personally, I never actually watched it because I'm bigoted against this entire look, like all of it, the hair, the smell.
I completely disagree with all this. I say you dress how you want when you make your show. I was a big fan of Adam Ruins Everything. Actually, I thought it was a neat flip on classic TV.
I'm sorry. I can't help it. It just awakens some ancient survival instinct in my lizard brain. But I still appreciated that the show existed because the conceit was that this man, Adam, debunks a different commonly held belief each episode, which is obviously something that I appreciate. Various episodes explained how vitamin supplements aren't necessarily good for you, that Christopher Columbus was a genocidal asshole, and how broken America's immigration system is, which are all things that I have discussed on this very channel, which, makes me think that maybe I should reconsider my innate bias against white men with abnormally tall hair. After all, I met Conan O'Brien once, and he was absolutely delightful. So, Adam Ruins Everything ended in 2019. Let's check out social media and see what Adam...
Wait, he's done something wrong? Don't cancel Adam, Lance. I'm not going to, because I don't have the power. Not yet. I'm working one day to have the cancel hammer, right? And he who wields it will be able to cancel anyone they so choose at any given time. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like cancel culture works the way I thought it would. I don't know if you saw, Arcade Fire has a new album and tour, and they're promoting it and such. There was zero consequences for the actions of the lead singer, who's been accused of sexually assaulting multiple people. Instead, they were like, you know what? We're going to finish our last tour in silence, which was odd. They basically did the rest of the tour, but they didn't talk during it. They just played all their songs every show and then left. And that was just kind of like, well, I can understand it from, like, unfortunately, a tour is literally thousands of people who are employed. So there's lots of people in the band. And I'm coming at this from a Arcade Fire fan standpoint. I was a fan of Arcade Fire. I went to an Arcade Fire concert with my mother. It was delightful. It was a very, very wholesome moment. And we had a lot of fun singing all the songs and all that stuff. But then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, okay, so they had to finish the tour. I get that. There was a lot of people's jobs on stake. So you know what? I can't even fully really rip into that. But then to just basically not address much of anything and then just be like, hey, new album. And this album is a rebuilding album, really. We had to do a lot of soul searching and think about our place in the musical scene and all that. So, cancel culture just don't do much, if it existed at all, really. And so, no, I'm not here to cancel anybody. This is just, I just want to learn.
Adam Conover is up to today.
So this is a bit of a different video for me. This tech company World paid me to come to their keynote in San Francisco so they could show me their new product. Apparently this product is kind of mysterious. It's been confusing the public, so they do not want me to endorse it. They just want me to ask questions about it, skeptical questions, and let you make up your own mind about it and hopefully help you understand what the hell it does. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to check out World's new product, the Orb.
Holy shit, he's going to debunk crypto scams directly to the scammers' faces while he takes their money? This is incredible. Let's see him hammer them.
That is a baller move, by the way. So, like, if you get an approach, massive company, doesn't matter who they are, and they're like, we'll pay you $50,000 or whatever it is to fly over to a conference, and you don't have to endorse our products at all. You just come over here, you do a video on it, and then you get to leave. Yeah. Okay. Like, yes, I will do that. I will shit all over your shitty product and you'll pay me to do it? That sounds amazing. I love it. Hey, Maple Takes. Good to see everyone. Check out Maple Takes channel.
With those skeptical questions of his.
So you guys don't save any of the credential, any of the cryptographic hash of my eye. It's just on my phone. I noticed that when I opened the app, there's a lot of crypto elements. And it said that once I verify myself on the Orb, it would give me like $41 in a crypto token. What is the intent of that? But aren't you worried that when people open the app and it says verify yourself on the Orb and we'll give you $41, that people's reaction will be, why do you want me to verify myself so bad? Like, why are you giving me money to do this? And a lot of people see crypto crypto and they're just like, that's a scam. And when you're trying to onboard a lot of people, it seems like that could be a barrier. Ian, thank you so much for explaining to me. I really appreciate it, man. Of course.
Okay, I'm back in LA. My orb venture is over. Final thoughts.
Did he answer that
I've been playing
question?
around
It was
with
a
the
good
World
question.
App. There is so much you can do with this app if you are into crypto. I am not into crypto. If you are, you might want to check it out. They also say that in the future, you will be able to log into Tinder and other services like that using World. Let me know what you're going to do. Are you going to get yourself orbed or not? It's entirely up to you.
Wow, such skepticism. Very hard-hitting journalism there. Okay, so he's genuinely taking money to promote something called the orb. And he wants to know if I'm going to get myself orbed. No, Adam, I'm not going to get myself orbed, because as fucking obviously dystopian as the orb from World sounds just from your video, the reality is it's actually way, way worse. But yes.
Okay, wait, sorry. So is the orb, because all I got from that little video description is it takes a picture of your eye and then you get cryptocurrency as a prize for that or something? Or is it once again some kind of like security measure or registering system?
Even what you can learn from that video is pretty obviously horrible. It
steals your soul, Jesus.
That scans your eyeball and other biometric data in exchange for $41 in cryptocurrency so that it can then use your biometric data to verify your identity to various corporations. And yes, they have called this machine the Orb and their company World. Well, they're calling their company that now, but a few years ago, World was better known as Worldcoin. Oh, and before that, Worldcoin was actually the name of the product, not the company. The guy who helped create it was Sam Altman.
Oh,
yeah,
my God.
The OpenAI guy. And he envisioned it as a collectively owned global currency that would be given to everyone on Earth, provided that they submit an iris scan. According to the founders, the scan was really important because that's the only way they would be able to know for sure that every single person gets their fair share of Worldcoin and no more. So, how did they train the orbs to distinguish humans based on their irises? By exploiting people, of course. In 2022, MIT Technology Review conducted an in-depth investigation that found that Worldcoin had spent the previous years canvassing developing countries in Africa.
Okay, so this sucks. It's all around shitty. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think that this could have been an awesome opportunity because, like, don't get me wrong, I still love Adam, and I get why people send me all those emails now. But this could have been an opportunity for Adam to once again have done a total baller move. Like, you could have been like, yeah, they gave me $50,000 to go over there to check out their product, and here's what I have to say. It's horrifying. Fuck them. This product is scary. It basically wants to take your retinal data and is paying you for it. But hey, do you think $41 in a cryptocurrency token is really worth the ability for a third party to sell the information of your own identity through your iris to third parties? No, I think that is one of the scariest things I've ever heard of.
Africa and Southeast Asia, offering the world's poorest people cryptocurrency in exchange for their eyeballs. A cryptocurrency that hadn't even launched yet, so nobody...
Brian, thank you for the $5. Get orbed, noob. I guess. Maybe I'm just in an old school, like, this is my boomer phase, right? Where, you know, my parents used to always make fun of modern technology when the smartphones came out and saying they'll destroy the planet. And I was like, this is technology that'll save the world. We got the whole sum total of human knowledge in our hands. You don't know how incredible this is. And maybe that's me for orb. Right? Maybe the orb will genuinely benefit humanity, and I'm just sitting there being the only fool who's like, I just don't want some inflated webcam, that probably just a regular one, to take my eye photos to sell them to another company. Yes, no, I know that there's an amount of money on the line. I could be getting $41 worth of a cryptocurrency token. The other thing is, what do I do with the $41 cryptocurrency token if that cryptocurrency token is worth nothing the next day or cannot be traded for actual fiat currency through any reasonable measure? I mean, it's just not, you know, a very, very dependable form of a prize.
Really knew how much it was going to be worth. And in some places, like Sudan, people didn't even have email addresses, so they had no idea what crypto even is. So Worldcoin operators bribed them with AirPods. And in Indonesia, they applied to teach a class on cryptocurrency to high school students, and then only taught them how to scan their irises and log into the Worldcoin app. The various forms and privacy agreements that Worldcoin had these people sign were often written in a language that they could not read. But Worldcoin did promise they would eventually delete this biometric data that they collected, which also included 3D body scans and other data, once they finished training their orbs. But security experts were skeptical that the company would keep their privacy promises and even that they could keep them. It turns out those experts were right to be skeptical, because a year after the MIT Technology Review investigation came out, Worldcoin got hacked. Several orb operators had all of their credentials stolen and posted on the dark web, giving anyone access to the full Worldcoin dashboard because it didn't even require two-factor authentication. MIT Technology Review also noted that Worldcoin was doing scans around Europe, which was going to lead to a lot of issues due to the EU's strong privacy laws. Sure enough, as of last year, at least 14 countries on 3 continents were investigating Worldcoin for ethical violations like signing up children, as they did not only in that Indonesian high school, but also in Portugal, whose government joined every other EU country besides Germany in banning the company. So here we are a year later. Worldcoin is now simply World, and they've convinced professional skeptic you can trust Adam Conover to tell his legion of fans that they should get orbed. You know, if they want to, because there's a lot of cool stuff on the app if you're into crypto, which Adam isn't. Also, the video he posted cuts away right before he actually puts his eyeball up to the orb, causing one to wonder if he's just not really into giving his biometric data to a deeply unethical corporation as well. Maybe he's just really into money. And I don't mean $41 of Worldcoin.
Wow, that was scathing. Well, I suppose I have to do some ordinary gamers thing here. If we were to extend charitability in this case, one could say that perhaps Adam was simply trying his best to uncover whether or not these products are indeed going to be harmful to the public. That's good enough, right? I can afterwards tell everybody that I basically took a really strong stance, even though I didn't really say much of anything at all. So there's that. Yeah, this sucks. I think like the biggest bummer of all of this is that I personally believe that Adam does really good work, especially because one of the best videos about Adam Conover isn't one of the Adam Ruins Everything ones. It's the one that he made like a year ago, specifically about organizing locally and how he was getting really tired living in LA of consistently seeing so much money going to massive real estate investors, corporations and stuff like that. So he banded together with a lot of people locally to start working on his local elections to get people who were going to start implementing measures like, say, developing social housing projects and helping with the homeless crisis that was there, and how inspiring the whole thing felt. And that video is something that I still show people today, to be like, hey, by the way, you should organize locally and you should start getting lefties elected into your local city councils and stuff like that, so you can actually start doing policies that'll directly help people in your community. Really good video, and that's unfortunate because, yeah, I think it honestly, it tarnishes your reputation if you do something like this, even if you delete it afterwards, or even if you make a video. I mean, maybe the whole thing is gearing up for a video if I was to, once again, some ordinary gamers this whole thing and extend charitability, but I was like, it's just shit all around. It's also like, you can't have your cake and eat it too, right? That's the shitty part, is that like, it would have been such a cool play if you took their money, went over there and exposed them as the fraudsters they are, and that was it. Not take their money and be like, well, it's not my thing. I'm not into crypto. I may have made a video or two about how the whole thing is a massive, scam. But if you're into it, then it's pretty cool. And if it's something you feel like you'd want to do, go do it, kind of thing. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's really only going to hurt your ability to advocate for, a lot of things that otherwise people might now be alienated by seeing because of the whole orb thing. New cabinet. So the brand new Prime Minister of Canada just announced his new cabinet, and they all got sworn in. And yesterday I made a post where I was laughing. The post is gone now. The news article deleted it. It's not because I ratioed them into oblivion. This is a very small, any post I do related to usually things in the vein of leftism don't do as well on the Twitters. Twitter doesn't like that anymore. But I was laughing at Chrystia Freeland, the granddaughter of a neo-Nazi, not getting any cabinet appointment despite doing everything that she was supposed to amongst the Liberals. It was like Chrystia Freeland will no longer be a part of Mark Carney's cabinet. I was like, lol, that's hilarious. Amazing. Yeah. Rare win for the Libs there. You did good. That's profoundly funny. She did so much work for you, and then you just cast her aside, despite the fact that she is on numerous times done a lot of really shady stuff. Also, very pro-Israel, pro-genocide, despite being extremely pro-Ukraine at the same time. One of the people who I think, if she was a civilian, which she almost was, would probably be putting like a Ukrainian flag and an Israeli flag in her profile kind of person, where you're just like, you are confused. That's how I'd put this. Unfortunately, it was reversed in 24 hours, and she's now part of the cabinet. I don't know what happened behind the scenes, because the articles that said that she was no longer going to be a part of the cabinet, they're all gone. They all got deleted. But she is now part of the cabinet. It'll be two-tiered. Carney opting to appoint 2 levels of key Liberals comes as part of his aim to streamline decision-making, according to the PMO source. Per parliamentary rules, anyone Carney names as cabinet minister will receive $99,000 up to their MP base salary. What the fuck? That's amazing. God. Maybe I will start running for public office. Not to do anything good or help change the world, just for the monies. And then I can just sit there all day like Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about bullshit. Yeah, I just have to invent a whole bunch of culture war shit, get all of you afraid of it, and then become a politician, and then pretend as if I'm fighting that. You invent like ghosts, specters of problems, things that aren't real, but really, really will work to like marginalize elements of society, keep a lot of people who are already having a bad time extra scared and afraid, and then I'll offer nothing to the people, and then just sit back and accept all of the promos and the monies. And that's basically what Marjorie Taylor Greene does for a living. And then I'll finally be reinvited back onto TYT. I've got my whole trajectory lined out for me there. It's great. Cabinet tries to set the tone. The Prime Minister understands that his closest advisors understand. They know the extent possible. There's little room for error. He's running this cabinet like a business. He's running the government of Canada like a corporation. And for the moment, we are in. It makes a lot of sense to have more streamlined perspectives around the big table. So the highlights, the lowlights, say something nice, Lance. The Minister of Indian Affairs is a First Nations woman. Good job on that. Probably a position that should primarily be led by Indigenous people. So that's good. Instead of, your previous person, Mark Miller, I believe was his name. So, yes. And he did not do the things that he promised. So maybe that'll be good. That'll be interesting. Otherwise, I mean, a lot of the picks seem to be very closely aligned with corporate ties. And yeah, the perspective that now Mark Carney is a no-nonsense businessman, capitalist who's going to effectively run the Canadian country like an engine. And that's, I think, how this whole thing is playing itself out. Well, parts of the country are trying to separate.
Tonight, our politics panel on the high-stakes meeting between the Prime Minister and the U.S. President. But first, opening the door to a vote on separation.
I won't prejudge what issues citizens might want to put on the table, but that is up to citizens to decide and to get the number of signatures. All I've said is I will honor the process.
Danielle Smith defending her live social media address when she stated her government would not put forward a referendum on separation, but also said a citizen-led initiative could trigger one. It's a conversation now drawing the ire of First Nations leaders and other provinces. And joining us now to discuss that and
whoa, it's even in Jacobin? Canada's Maple MAGA secessionists. Less than 24 hours after Liberal Prime Minister Mark Carney won Canada's recent federal election, Danielle Smith, Premier of the Western Provinces of Alberta, declared herself unhappy with the result. Less than a week after that, she unveiled a plan for Alberta to separate from Canada through a referendum. To American observers, this must seem like a bizarre turn. After all, Carney's election success has quite rightly been attributed to a surge in Canadian patriotism. Canadian voters were justifiably anxious about the American president, Donald Trump's tariffs, and the threat about turning Canada into the 51st state. A plurality decided that Carney was the best choice to stand up to the bully. In the midst of the pro-Canada wave, Premier Smith and members of the ruling United Conservative Party have stood apart. They argue that the new Prime Minister and his government in Ottawa pose a greater threat to Alberta than Donald Trump and his administration does in Washington. The contrast is stark. While most other provincial premiers were saying elbows up and rallying around the Canadian flag, Smith was flying to Mar-a-Lago, polishing her credentials at PragerU fundraisers and cosplaying as a Republican governor, her stated favorites being Ron DeSantis and Kristi Noem. Why is Smith so out of step with other Canadians, including the majority of Albertans who oppose separation? The short answer is this. The UCP leadership sold their souls to MAGA, or at least its Canadian counterparts, in order to win political power. The roots of the problem go back to May 5th, 2015, when Alberta's traditional dominant progressive conservatives were toppled in a historic upset by the left-leaning Democratic Party. It was the first time the NDP ever had a provincial win, and it happened because the conservative movement was fractured. On the one side, there were long-dominant progressive conservatives who had ruled oil-rich Alberta for 44 uninterrupted years, and on the other, the upstart Wildrose Party, backed by the MAGA-style activists and oil companies eager for lower taxes and fewer regulations. Inspired by Fox News and the US Tea Party, Wildrose split the Conservative vote, allowing the NDP to sneak up the middle. For many Alberta Conservatives, the NDP victory was a personal affront. The shock of losing power to a lightning-fast merger between the PCs and Wildrose to form a UCP, which defeated the NDP in 2019 and again, narrowly in 2023, but Conservative unity came at a price. De facto control of the new party shifted to its increasingly radical Maple MAGA wing. Maple MAGA is so fucking cringe, by the way. As with Republicans in the US, the pandemic deepened to UCP's extremism. Premier Jason Kenney, the party's founding leader, was forced out of sin for taking COVID somewhat seriously. He was replaced by Smith, who sidelined unpopular public health officials during the pandemic and appealed to the UCP's angry base. What's happened is just like worse and worse people have taken more and more positions of power. And just this seems to be a similar problem to what actually happened in the United States with Donald Trump and his cabinet. Like, the Tea Party and the Tea Party movement and a lot of people who became famous through that, like Ted Cruz, etc. You can put them in one camp. You can put the rhinos in another camp. Then you can, start compartmentalizing all the different kinds of right-wing ideology. But then you just have the radical extremists who are basically just full-blown Christian nationalist white supremacists who believe in, making sure that America is for English-speaking, mostly white Americans only, and, African refugees from South Africa, as Donald Trump is inadvertently decolonizing that country. Like her predecessor, Smith has attempted to keep her coalition together by stoking resentment towards Ottawa. She claims the federal Liberals are anti-energy, despite the fact that Justin Trudeau's government spent $34 billion in public funds for a pipeline that delivers record profits to Alberta's oil companies. This anti-Ottawa strategy has worked so well when Trump floated the idea of turning Canada into the 51st state. Many of their base, already primed to see the federal government as the enemy, began to view separation from Canada as the next logical step in defending Alberta's interests. According to polling, about a third of Albertans are open to the idea, but amongst the UCP voters, that number jumps to 65%. So this far-right fringe radical separatist party, which became the dominant now conservative option in the province, now is going to be speaking for the majority of Albertans when 60% of Alberta doesn't want this. And 30%, or I guess less than 30%, but 25% of their own cabinet doesn't want this either. So yeah, she is not only going to have to go up against, again, every single First Nation, Indigenous, and even the Métis Nation that have signed off on stating that this will not happen. You don't own the land. You're free to leave. You're free to seek, the citizenship in another country. This looks so much like George Santos. It's almost distracting. This is George Santos, like with the aging Snapchat filter on. Speaking of Britain for the British. Let's see what Stam is all about, Danielle.
Let me put it this way.
Okay.
Nations depend on rules, fair rules. Sometimes they're written down, often they're not. But either way, they give shape to our values, guide us towards our rights, of course, but also our responsibilities, the obligations we owe to each other. Now, in a diverse nation like ours, and I celebrate that,
oh, good,
these rules become even more important. Without them, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together. So when you have an immigration system that seems almost designed to permit abuse, that encourages some businesses to bring in lower paid workers rather than invest in our young people, or simply one that is sold by politicians to the British people on an entirely false premise, then you're not championing growth. You're not championing justice or however else people defend the status quo. You're actually contributing to the forces that are slowly pulling our country apart. So yes, I believe in this. I believe we need to reduce immigration significantly. That's why some of the policies in this white paper go back nearly 3 years. Why I told the Labour Party conference, taking back control is a Labour argument. And why, most importantly of all, inward migration is already falling with this government.
Interesting stuff. Prime Minister Starmer accused of echoing far right amid immigration overhaul. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has been criticized for allegedly echoing the language of the far right in a speech announcing the overhaul of the country's immigration policies. Speaking on Monday, less than 2 weeks after anti-immigration reform UK parties swept the victory in local elections, Starmer vowed to end Britain's failed experiment in open borders and tighten the system so that it was controlled, selective, and fair. Now, this is why politicians like Keir Starmer and what he represents are pretty much doomed to fail, because ultimately, what you're doing right now is legitimizing the far right in their rapid advancement. You see them suddenly rising in the polls at a rapid pace. So let's look at the 2024 UK election. Where is reform at? 5 fucking seats. 5. The little racist nobodies in the corner here, all right? Not legitimately actually capable of forming government. Fast forward to today, and what do we got? Nigel Farage's approval ratings have climbed since the party's success in the local elections, while Reform UK has surged ahead of Labour into the top of the latest Fresh Rogers Strategy City AM poll to UK voters. Since last week's survey, Keir Starmer's net approval rating had a modest improvement from 39 to 36, while Tory leader Kimi Badenoch has slumped from 12 to 15. Meanwhile, Farage's ratings have jumped from 12 to just -8, and the Reform now tops the voting intention survey at 32 fucking %. Nigel Farage, potential future Prime Minister of Britain. The poll, which was conducted by the Prime Minister's speech on immigration reform, also reveals that 70% of voters think the UK is headed in the wrong direction, while a fifth of voters, 19%, say they are unsure of which party they trust to form the British economy. 25% say Reform UK is the best place to do so. Just 19% believe that the Tory party is capable of overseeing economic growth, while 20% can trust Labour to deliver. Voters express high levels of reform support for Reform UK's policy position. 65% say backing their plan to increase the personal allowance to £20,000 and the higher rate of threshold just over 50,000 to 70,000. Just over 60% of the party's pledged to abolish stamp duty on properties valued below £750,000, the same percentage as the party claims they would abolish inheritance tax on estate values below $2 million. How are these two things happening in tandem? It's just pretty wild to see. Because the same thing happened here in Canada, for example. Like, it was not met with any pushback when Mark Carney came into power, and one of the first things he did is reverse the Liberals' original proposals to increase inheritance taxation. Capital gains taxes, both for money that you may have gotten simply by inheriting hundreds of millions of dollars if you happen to come from a rich family, or by selling a house that you do not primarily live in, or assets, that kind of stuff. Well, you would normally pay a very high capital gains rate, which was increased multiple times under the Liberal government, and now they rolled that back, obviously appealing to, again, a very small amount of very rich people. It's in a diverse nation like ours, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together. I saw Owen Jones and other people saying that it did sound reminiscent of Enoch Powell's infamous Rivers of Blood speech in 1968, when a politician warned that white Britons could find themselves strangers in their own country. Zara Sultana, a politician who was recently suspended from the Labour Party for voting against the government, was amongst those who condemned Starmer. The Prime Minister imitating Enoch Powell's Rivers of Blood speech is sickening. That speech fueled decades of racism and division, echoing into today's disgrace. It adds to anti-migrant rhetoric and puts lives at risk. Meanwhile, Labour MP Nadia Whittome also accused the Prime Minister of adopting the language of the far right. The step up of anti-immigrant rhetoric from our government is shameful and dangerous, she wrote. Migrants are our neighbours. This suggests that Britain risks becoming an island of strangers because immigration mimics the scaremongering of the far right. Yeah. You may have heard in Canada, because I can't speak directly to the situation in Britain, not living there myself, but you may have heard how immigration effectively was used very strongly in our recent election. Specifically, that our worker visa program was broken and being taken advantage of, and that immigrants were effectively ruining our economy as a result. And that's something that requires a little bit of a closer inspection, because while it is true that there were a lot of people, Canadians, who either were small business or large business owners, were themselves immigrants at one point, but now are obviously citizens of Canada, who run companies. A lot of those companies were, yes, trying to bring in as much cheap exploitable labor as possible so that they could exploit people from other countries for cheap exploitable labor. There should have been better protectionism and better provisions put in place for temporary or, foreign workers coming into the country to be able to give them workers' rights. I know that's, moving in the opposite direction of people who want to punish and exploit immigrants. But the idea that there were immigrants coming into the country and being exploited is true. That part is true. But the part that gets left out usually is that the companies doing so are doing so to be able to, again, generate as much profit as possible. But the immigrants will nonetheless be the scapegoat when it comes to, hey, by the way, things are really fucked up right now. And they are really fucked up right now. You're not wrong on that. Well, I mean, the big cause of that is immigration. Immigrants bring crime. Immigrants steal jobs when they arrive here. Immigrants get a whole bunch of benefits, and that takes those benefits away from citizens of the country. They come for the free healthcare. They come for the free houses. They come because they get to vote, and then replace the white race. And all of that is just the reality. So we got to target them 24/7. And again, this serves as a perfect distraction because we're going after a very vulnerable group that do not have a lot of rights. Contrary to popular belief, immigrants cannot vote in your elections. Immigrants do not by default get health care when they arrive to Canada. And the vast majority of them do not have the money to be able to put as a down payment for a house. So no, they don't go over here and they buy up all the houses. All of that is untrue. But again, they are a vulnerable group, which, again, not having money might not be able to afford lawyers, not being able to afford lawyers. They might not be able to push up against people using them as scapegoats, targeting them specifically as a cause of the majority of the problems in society. Also, this argument, which white supremacists have been doing fucking forever, the language one. People who arrive to a country want to eventually learn the language for the simple reason of it's very hard to get around, communicate, and do things when you're not capable of learning or speaking the language. This is not a matter of people arriving to other countries and simply by default wanting to destroy the very essence of what makes Britain a British empire and speak in other languages and stuff like that. You don't see the same thing done in other directions, by the way, right? Like for all the white people that have been living in South Africa for fucking hundreds of years, how many of them learned Zulu? Like, what's the percentage there? I'd love to know. Did any of you learn the language? Were you actually ready to learn the culture and assimilate properly? Or did you just want to colonize a region, take it over and turn it into another English-speaking part of the world? Like, it's one of those things where, if you happen to be a European, you're an expat. If you're not, you're an immigrant, a permanent immigrant, just residing somewhere else. Kind of, the same thing. Oh, yeah, we got to talk about all of Trump's gifts. So many presents.
Democracy depends on a free press. Please support our independent journalism at democracynow.org/give. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Trump heads to the Middle East with a single goal: deals, deals, deals. That's the headline of a New York Times piece our next guest contributed to as he follows the dealings of the Trump administration. Eric Lipton is a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative reporter with the New York Times, where his latest pieces are headlined, "Auction to Dine with Trump Creates Foreign Influence Opportunity," and "Trump's son's deals on 3 continents directly benefit the president." Welcome back to Democracy Now!, Eric Lipton. Well, why don't you start there? We're looking at this first major international trip President Trump is taking. First stop, Riyadh. We're looking at the line of American CEOs and others who are shaking the hands of Mohammed bin Salman and President Trump, very prominently, of course, the richest man in the world, Elon Musk, the Trump ally. If you can talk about who is behind the trip? You can talk about the advising of Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, and what all of them, and who we aren't seeing right now, Eric and Donald Trump have to gain.
Well, the Middle East.
I'm so sick of everything being called a deal. It's dumbing down the reality. Yeah, and I think, like, honestly, a lot of the mainstream media is completely complicit in this. Like, yes, it's difficult to navigate the waters right now when you're being bombarded with so many stories at once, and that's by design. But at the same time, how much coverage is actually focusing on being very plain and being like, Trump didn't accomplish anything with China. I know all of right-wing media is just going to give him this massive win, like, oh my God, they're out of the deal. Can you believe that he actually stood up to China and that, you know, they suffered for a little while, but then effectively they finally backed off and they're agreeing to our terms and conditions. All that's been done is he reset the state of his trade with China to where it was a month ago, minus the plus 10% of baseline tariffs that everyone now has to pay. It's absurd. It's clown shoes. He's doing all that while he's locking up mayors, getting ICE to be his personal Gestapo, fucking detaining streamers at airports. Like, he's doing all this shit, and I, you know, the ones eroding the actual, like, you know, not obeying judges, not following the rule of law, not obeying the Constitution. That kind of stuff is, again, being done to consolidate power and increases authoritarian presence. That doesn't get touched on nearly as much as, well, statesman Trump, capable of standing up to China. We didn't think it'd be possible, but it seems like Xi Jinping is ready to make a deal, and it's pretty historic that the president was capable of doing this in a matter of, you know, only a couple of weeks. He did nothing. It's where it was but weeks ago, before he announced all the lunacy that they had picked up from ChatGPT, which he then again announced and then reversed. Every single time he's like, yeah, no, I'm going to apply pressure to Canada. I can't subsidize Canada anymore. Gotta, you know, do what's important, and we're going to make sure that we get them to pay their fair share. And then it's like, okay, well, Canada's just going to do retaliatory tariffs, and that's not, you know, you weren't subsidizing us. This was a trade surplus. There's a huge difference. The auto industry in America is going to collapse if you suddenly stop allowing us to move car parts back and forth between the two nations. What the fuck are you doing? And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, Trudeau, did you do all the things I asked? Have you destroyed the fentanyl? Yes, fentanyl is dead. I killed it. Cool. All right, well, Trudeau killed fentanyl. That's not a problem anymore. And I'm going to now for a month suspend all of these evil tariffs that I've applied because Canada learned their lesson. Everyone has to sit back and just be like, what? But you do realize that we're exactly where we were just but a few weeks ago. He didn't accomplish anything. You don't get to do that. You can't make your own problems and then when they get solved afterwards be like, solve that problem, didn't I? The one I created completely. That's why I keep saying this is like watching a dude shoot himself in the dick and then everyone's like, holy shit, why would he do that? Why did he shoot himself in the dick? I don't know. I don't know. But don't give him credit when someone else takes the bullet out and saves his life. And then like someone else takes the bullet out, saves his life, and then everyone's like, holy shit, he miraculously got cured from dick bullet. And it's like, no. But you do not remember 2 weeks ago when he was shooting himself in the dick in front of your very eye? You saw him do that. You saw him do that. He shouldn't get credit for someone else taking it out. This is not like, what are we doing here? What is all this?
This is the nexus of the Trump organization's global business operations at the moment. It's really their single most important profit center by far. And it relates to the fact that there is such enormous wealth there. It's the oil and gas revenues over many decades have been stuffed into the sovereign wealth funds.
Dick Bullet sounds like a hardened cop's name.
And the sovereign wealth funds are now looking to expand their engagement globally to become more prominent economic players in the world. And so that's the reason that there are so many, you know, venture capitalists and artificial intelligence or technology companies that are heading to the Middle East. And it's the same reason that the Trumps and Jared Kushner are so tied to the Middle East, because they have hundreds of billions of dollars to give out. And that's the reason that so many American corporations are in the Middle East with President Trump right now. So for the Trump family, they have $2 billion worth of capital that in the last several weeks, the government of Abu Dhabi announced that it was going to put into World Liberty Financial, their cryptocurrency company. And that will pass through.
Rich people, again, are just consolidating all their money and power globally. This is all part of the same plan. Trump says he will remove U.S. sanctions on Syria. Democratic officials sue Trump administration for access to federal funds. That's kind of wild, just to get those federal funds that you should be getting anyway. Sanctions relief mark monumental shifts in U.S. policy. Top U.S. diplomat slams Trump administration official for reportedly approving Qatar jet deal. inside the Trump state dinner at the UNESCO World Heritage, Syrian foreign minister thanks Saudi Arabia for the role in the sanction relief. There was also a pretty big sale, was there not? I believe for something like $140 billion worth of weaponry sold to Saudi Arabia. 142. Sorry, my mistake. The White House has an agreement with Saudi Arabia, includes investments in weapons and technology, which is going to total $600 billion. The administration of the United States says that Saudi Arabia will invest $600 billion in the United States, including through technology partnerships and weapons sales agreements worth $142 billion. A fact sheet shared with the White House on Tuesday explains with that agreement, which also includes collaboration in areas such as energy, mineral development, and its largest ever weapons sale between the two countries. The deals celebrated today are historic and transformative for both countries and represent a new golden area of partnership between the United States and Saudi Arabia. Man, the U.S. is for sale. Trump is just carving it out piece by piece. And then, of course, it's basically a full-time weapons distributor and manufacturer. So on the other end, they're selling lots of weapons. Trump was in the Saudi capital of Riyadh on Tuesday as part of the Middle East tour, taking the first major international trip in his second term as president. Later in the week, he's expected to make stops in Qatar and the United Arab Emirates. But already, the trip has renewed criticism that Trump is using diplomatic outings to advance his personal interests. The proposed transfer of a $400 million luxury aeroplane, for instance, from Qatar to the U.S. Department of Defense, has raised questions about the U.S. about its ethics and constitutionality of accepting gifts from foreign governments. During his first term as president in 2017, Trump likewise included Saudi Arabia on his first major trip abroad, a voyage that similarly culminated in a multi-billion-dollar arms deal. But the global outcry from the 2018 murder of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi at a consulate in Istanbul briefly threatened to upend the relationship. The U.S. government has alleged that forces linked to the Saudi crown prince, Mohammed bin Salman, were responsible for the killing. Tuesday's agreement is designed to help modernize the Saudi military with state-of-the-art war-fighting equipment and services from over a dozen U.S. defense firms, which, by the way, will allow Saudi Arabia to continue to just rain terror on, surrounding nations for generations to come. If you are tired of forever wars, and if you're an American citizen tired of, where does all the money go? The richest nation on earth seems to have a lot of crumbling infrastructure and a lot of its citizens without any form of healthcare. The nearly minted deal is not limited to security cooperation. The agreement also lays out a plan in which Saudi Arabia will invest $20 billion in energy infrastructure and data centers for artificial intelligence in the U.S., a significant infusion of cash into the industries that have close ties to the Trump administration. In both areas, U.S. companies stand to reap a potential windfall. Saudi Arabia wants to become one of the top global investors in artificial intelligence. That's why you will see many tech CEOs here. This is a disaster, by the way. The entire AI bubble is already a disaster. This is something that is going to potentially collapse the U.S. economy. I think somewhere between like 30 and 35% of all U.S. stock investments are in tech companies. They are propping up a large sector of the entire American economy. Those tech companies are investing heavily in a technology that is yet to prove itself to have a potential profitable test use case. All they have is a war that they have been proposing exists. It's a war of their own design in which they are trying to outcompete one another, all the big tech companies both here and internationally, to have the most powerful and largest data centers possible to be able to compute the most information possible. And what that information can do for us has yet to be demonstrated. I know that a lot of you like Snapchat filters. I know some people enjoy their Studio Ghibli avatars. Some people have enjoyed having a recipe pop up instantaneously when they want to know it, and it may include glue or rocks, but that's just for lulz. And there's a handful of things that are neat tricks, I'll grant you. They're like magic tricks where they're just like, this is pretty cool, eh? We got this brand new technology. But the only direction that they've ever seemed to be continuously moving in is that we need more money for more data centers. And that's just it. And we need to build larger data centers. They will require their own nuclear power plants to be able to provide the energy for these data centers. They need to be larger, more sophisticated, more powerful. If we don't do this, China will. And companies in China will be able to outcompete us. So we need to be at the front of the AI race. The Canadian government just announced their new cabinet today and appointed for the first time a position where someone is in charge of AI development. And it's like, no one has told anyone involved in this the problem with this balloon that we're inflating. I'm not a Luddite. I'm not someone who hates technology. I'm not someone who has been for a long time anti every single thing that comes out, right? Like I was, even when crypto was first coming out, the very theory of it, it was like, oh, that sounds kind of neat, decentralized currency, and then you're going to be able to kind of like a BitTorrent share information with multiple users, and they're going to be able to build things on that like a blockchain. I didn't really fully understand it at the time. And then once you learn what it all is, you're like, oh, that's incredibly wasteful and ridiculous. No, that's not what we need. What are you talking about? You've invented a permanent ledger on the internet and a highly inefficient and energy consumption way to transfer value to one another. But we have better ways of doing it already. We don't need to build entire data sets. Oh my God, we're doing it. You should listen to Ed Zitron podcast Better Offline. I do every single episode. It is one of my favorites right now. And that's honestly, to anyone who doesn't listen to Better Offline, if you don't want to listen to someone like me without a tech background or journalism background, fine. Listen to Ed Zitron. He will sit there and he just pulls up the raw numbers and he constantly says, I wish I was wrong about this. I wish I was lying, but I feel crazy because I feel like the only person who's realizing that this is the most unsustainable fucking business model possible. And no one knows that we're propping up the global economy based on parts of this lie. That includes now Saudi Arabia is going to be pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into the US economy, specifically to keep propping up countries like Palantir and other tech companies that are promising eventually when we reach ChatGPT 6.0, something miraculous is going to happen. There's a reason why there is so much hype and no demonstratable test use yet, but so much hype. Like, holy fuck, every time you hear one of these tech gurus talk about this kind of stuff, he's like, I am terrified at the technology we've unlocked and uncovered, all right? I thought Skynet was a scary thing. This is like a billion Skynets times 9/11 plus Steven Seagal, all in the same thing. It's horrifying what we've created. We have sentient computers capable of tracking the entirety of the human genome. And you're like, no, you don't. This is a very sophisticated series of ones and zeros and the computational power of entire Costco's worth of GPUs. Yeah, it can do some neat shit in terms of, I would assume if you had 100,000 fucking GPUs connected to each other, it could make a pretty good rendition of Garfield's tits. Yes, I hope. That much computing power, I would assume it can do something fucking phenomenal. But you told us it was going to cure all disease. That's what they were saying. Like, oh yeah, we're going to be able to map the human genome, and then this artificial intelligence is going to be able to invent all kinds of new vaccines and cures. Well, sucks to be you, because unfortunately, not only can it not do that, even if it could, ain't no way the United States is going to be investing heavily in some brand new fucking vaccine or miraculous medical technology at this point in history. Have you seen the way the United States is going right now? RFK Jr. is swimming in literal doo-doo. He is swimming in fecal water right now. That's not a bit. He is swimming in sewage water that has high rates of E. coli and dangerous levels of bacteria, and he's bringing his kids in there. This is the man who's going to sit down and be like, well, thanks to this new AI technology that's definitely not scary and super reliable, doesn't have hallucinations or incest, and is completely capable of producing the most fucking sophisticated information possible. We now have a new vaccine we can put in our bodies. I mean, at that point, I would be like, oh God, I don't know who to trust. I love the idea of the modern miracle that is vaccines, but also the fact that AI made this. Ooh, maybe I have to go in the anti-vax camp for a little while. I don't even know what I'm doing here. What does the poo man think? The man whose brain was literally eaten by a worm. What does he have to say about that? Does he have an opinion on the entire thing? Automatic disease detection using pattern recognition to scan tissue is being used, and it finds things, but it's slow and individual and still needs a doctor to operate it. I'm completely fine with if there are potential, life-changing, beneficial technological advances through the use of deep machine learning to use that technology for that purpose. And honestly, if you want to go down that road, do it. Hype that shit up. Because on the other end, I've got Sam Altman and every one of these tech bros who's consistently telling us that, like, oh, you don't get it. That's the same language that was used to me for cryptocurrency. And at one point, I really got it, okay? At one point, I did my homework. I realized how blockchain technology works, and I started learning all about these different kind of cryptocurrency, all this kind of shit. But I always had crypto bros telling me if I criticized anything about their fucking god-like, token system, that I didn't understand what the fuck I was talking about. Then I would say, oh, you just don't get it. But that's not an answer to a legitimate, valid question as to why I think that there are a lot of problems with your proposal. And in the question with AI, like, like everyone else, when ChatGPT first came out, or even the very rudimentary, like, what was it, 3 years ago? Maybe it was 4 years ago, when the first kind of, you can do generated images. They're not that great. They're kind of weird and blurry and scary, but you can kind of do that. Of course, like everyone else, I was like, oh, this is neat. It does genuinely feel like, you know, this program has, you know, advanced intelligence to a degree I've never seen from an online computer console, where it can convincingly write hip-hop lyrics, not great ones, but it can still rhyme. It could write a Dr. Seuss poem. It could do a fucking a recipe that seems like it would be able to be consumed by a human. So this is kind of neat. But that was years ago, and where has it gone? Like, where, like, I always see the hype men always constantly doing that thing where they're like, this is a game changer. Can you believe this? This now is capable of doing this and this and this. And then it's like, well, what is the practical applications of that? Yeah. We can do very realistic cartoon renditions of some of your favorite beloved animators. It's math. So ain't no hate like Christian love. Lance, I thought you were talking about Trump. Yeah, that's true. I don't know how I got from Trump to AI. Oh yeah, Saudi Arabia. Damn you, Mohammed bin Salman. How could you do this to me?
Let's now go to our White House correspondent, Kimberly Halkett. She is normally in Washington, D.C., but today she is in Riyadh to follow this visit. And Kimberly, we're expecting to see...
Israel's war in Gaza has complicated those efforts. The United Nations experts have warned that Israel's actions in Gaza are consistent with genocide, and South Africa has accused Israel of genocide before the International Court of Justice. The International Criminal Court, meanwhile, has issued arrest warrants for Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant over accusations of war crimes. The spiraling death toll in Gaza and the allegations of human rights abuses have caused outrage in the region and have hardened Riyadh's insistence that normalization would only come as part of a wider agreement of a Palestinian state, a move Israel will not be willing to consider. So I guess this comes down to, between those two nations, which one is going to be more beneficial to Trump and his inner circle. And it seems like Saudi Arabia is putting up the cash. That might be right now why there's some contention or some rifts going on between a lot of different elected officials and Donald Trump and what his future plans
which
are.
went into his private equity firm. And then similarly, the Public Investment Fund is the single biggest investor in Live Golf, which has played 4 tournaments in a row at the Trump family's Doral golf course in Florida. And so the money from the Middle East is just in so many different ways, in crypto, in golf, and hotels, and Jared Kushner are flowing into Trump family operations. And so it's not surprising.
In Jared Kushner, he's just his own form of money flow.
That this is a big trip that the president has taken to visit UAE, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia, 3 business partners of the Trump family.
So talk more about Eric and Donald Trump. In the first administration, we saw them all the time. They were front and center. But right now, we're not seeing them. You write an article, maybe that's because they're making deals on 3 continents that directly benefit the president, but also the financial relationship between President Trump and his 2 older sons.
I mean, Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner were in the White House in the first term, but Don Jr. and Eric Trump were never a part of the administration. They were part of the political operation, and they have always been a part of the political operation. So in terms of their visibility and presence in the second term, I don't see that much difference for Don Jr. and Eric. I mean, they are very active, and they are, Eric Trump was just in Dubai giving a speech at the crypto event, and then he similarly was with Dar Global having a grand celebration of the start of the Dubai Trump International Hotel project that's on sale there now for more than I think it's $12 million for some of the top condos there. So there, and Don Jr. is going to be in Vegas for a Bitcoin conference, and he's going to be in Qatar next week as well for another conference. And so they are out there, and Don Jr. is opening up a new club in Washington. He's a part owner of something called the Executive Branch, which is obviously named after the
they're just curing future generations of wealth accumulation here. That's one of the reasons why they're leaning so heavily into the crypto world, because there is just so much money in the crypto world. And effectively, it was the Democrats in the United States who were actually, on the side of maybe we should be proposing some kind of regulations here. It seems like this is getting out of control. We're going to have the FEC monitor more of this. But I mean, if you get in there and you're like, you know what, you guys can just do whatever the fuck you want. It's game over time. You have free reign to just basically be as insidious and dangerous with this form of financial investment as you need to be, and just keep giving us money that we need to stay in power. One hand washes the other, right? So yeah. Hold on. Thank you very much to Brian Tulmy for the $5. The Oregon Trail Health Secretary. Yeah, I'm assuming we're talking about fucking RFK there. He would have died of dysentery in any other era. Rachel Atwood, thank you so much. Hassan sets a bad example. Shut the fuck up when you're detained. It depends on the situation, but that's genuinely my advice to anybody is that, learn your rights, know your rights within a situation. You may not have the same rights that you believe you do once you start crossing through borders and such like that, but learn your rights and ask for a lawyer and speak to your lawyer about what your rights are in that situation. Any information you give them is information that could be used against you effectively.
You're going to cost you $500,000 a person to get a membership. And David Sachs, the president's crypto advisor, is one of the founding members. And Jeff Miller, a lobbyist who has dozens of clients that he's gotten since Trump started. He's a big fundraiser for Trump, is also one of the founding members. And Don Jr., the son of the president, is one of the owners. So Don will be present at that venue in Georgetown once it opens. So I've seen a lot of Don and Eric, similar to what I saw in the first term. The difference is that they are much bolder in their deal making right now than they were in.
I really just can't stand this guy. I'm sorry. He's just too hardcore for me.
In the U.S., free public school typically has 13 grades and begins with kindergarten at age 5. It's been this way for a long time, but some say that free public school should start at age 4, universal pre-K. Free or cheap education for 4-year-olds is already a reality in many wealthy countries around the world. But in the US, universal pre-K is often seen as a lofty progressive goal with a big price tag. And it only exists in a few states and some cities.
That's woke,
Vermont's
yeah.
had it since 2014.
Get woke,
so
kids.
In New York City. And DC's popular UPK program started in 2008. But the US state with the longest continuously running, free, universally available, high-quality education program for 4-year-olds is Oklahoma. Yep, Oklahoma is about as conservative as it gets. It hasn't voted for a Democratic president in 60 years. But this state made free, high-quality pre-K the new normal back in 1998, years ahead of its progressive peers.
Kindergarten is just an arbitrary line.
It's hard to even think of us not having pre-K programs. It seems like they've been
Good job,
here
Oklahoma.
forever.
I wanted to know a couple things. How they pulled this off.
The voters didn't have a clue what we were doing, on purpose.
What other states can learn from the program, and what free pre-K looks like a generation of kids later. Now, free pre-K isn't exactly rare in the US. Most US states offer some form of state-funded pre-K for 4-year-olds, but very few are considered universal. The majority of these programs prioritize low-income and at-risk children. Programs like that are often part of Head Start, a big, federally funded school program that's been subsidizing education for young children living in poverty since the 1960s. A program that the Trump administration is threatening to dismantle. In Oklahoma, Head Start schools and public elementary schools are closely linked. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, Head Start schools are run by an organization called CAP Tulsa. They share resources with Tulsa public schools and, in many cases, are built close together.
Everything the children are doing in the classroom is intentionally arranged to stimulate their development in every respect. I am the executive director of CAP Tulsa. We were observing these children using these colorful tiny tiles that they were gluing onto the first letter of their name. That type of skill, that fine motor skill development, prepares them to hold a pencil.
I visited both CAP and public elementary pre-K classrooms to see the kinds of activities she meant.
Where do Americans' tax dollars actually go? Let's look that up. Not being an American, I couldn't answer off the top. I want pie. I found pie. So y'all spend of your dollar 20% on Social Security, 20% on defense, 22% on healthcare, 13% on the social safety net, 6% goes to the interest you gotta pay as a country. Transportation gets 3, education gets 2, science research gets 2, international affairs gets 1, and then sexy other. We don't quite know. Obviously, a lot of these are going to be moved around significantly for 2025, where the defense is going to increase a little bit. Social Security is most likely going to decrease quite a bit. Safety net will decrease a lot. Healthcare spending will continue because you can spend a lot of money on healthcare. That doesn't mean you're getting healthcare. That just means that there's going to be a lot of money spent on it. You spend more than any other nation on healthcare and get worse results.
Identifying the parts of a book.
What's this part?
And creative problem solving and collaboration.
It's how to get along with people, how to self-regulate.
And it works.
By the way, like the results of what is happening is indicative of how the system works. There's probably a better way of wording that, but ultimately, if you're spending 20% of every dollar on military and you're spending 2 or 3% on education, It's definitely indicative of the priorities within your own society on where you want it to go and what direction.
Decades of research shows that kids that experience high-quality education environments as 4-year-olds show up to elementary school with an advantage.
Kindergarten teachers always know the children that have come through our program because they are the children that know how to be in school.
You can really understand the impact of that when you see kids who didn't have this experience. Take a look at this video of Oklahoma 5-year-olds in the 90s.
Red.
Okay, what color is this?
Green.
And what's this one?
Red.
These kids were entering kindergarten, but some couldn't count to 5.
Is that 5?
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
So why doesn't every state have this? One maybe obvious barrier is funding. Not all lawmakers are convinced that the educational benefits of free pre-K for all are worth the money. But one group that is particularly wary of free pre-K is the private childcare industry, and kind of for good reason. It all comes down to the business model of private childcare.
Of course.
One of the biggest costs to a certified childcare center is hiring qualified teachers, and each age group requires different teacher-to-child ratios to ensure adequate care for each child. Infants need the most care, so their required ratio is the highest, and these classrooms are the smallest. As you move up to 4-year-olds, your oldest group before they head off to public kindergarten, that ratio is lower, so the same number of teachers can accommodate a much larger group of kids. So if you think of each teacher as a cost and each kid as a client, 4-year-olds are the most profitable for these private childcare providers and subsidize the pricier infant care. Take them out of the equation by enacting universal pre-K, for example, and you risk bankrupting these childcare centers or passing on unmanageable costs to working parents who need this service. This argument that universal pre-K hurts childcare has come up as Texas has tried to expand pre-K access. But that didn't happen in Oklahoma, in large part because of this man.
My name is Joe Edens. I'm a retired member of the Oklahoma House of Representatives.
His universal pre-K bill and a loophole in the law.
In the late 1990s, I was able to add a 14th grade, and we called it pre-kindergarten.
Kindergarten in the U.S. is for 5-year-olds. But in the mid-90s, some Oklahoma school districts started to notice a hole in the state's new kindergarten law that incentivized them to add 4-year-olds to those classrooms. This is how the loophole worked. The bill said that school districts could offer either a half-day kindergarten program or a full-day program, and the districts received funding based on the number of kids enrolled. But the law didn't say a half-day program counted less than a full-day program funding-wise. A student enrolled in either one earned the same amount.
You put a poison pill in the law. I guess, yeah, you could call it
half-day programs in one day and get double funded.
This was just a moneymaker. One teacher could have the full money coming in the morning, and then another set of full money coming just like the bank truck came by twice a day. And that was an incentive for schools to have a lot of kindergarten.
Which is why 4-year-olds were being added to these classrooms. More students enrolled in kindergarten meant more funding.
Once school superintendents understood that a lot of people were doing this and they figured out the money involved, they jumped on it.
This was a problem for the state.
I had a worksheet that showed here's what we're doing last year, this year, and what'll happen next year as other school districts jump on this deal.
To keep schools from packing kindergartens with 4-year-olds, Joe's bill proposed setting up early childhood programs at any public school that wanted it. It would be free of charge, just for 4-year-olds, and crucially, he struck out this part, who meet the qualifications for Head Start. With this one piece of one sentence removed, Joe was proposing a universal program. But to catch that, you'd need to read the bill closely. And Joe didn't say, this is the bill that creates universal pre-K, even though that's exactly what it was.
More than 380 figures from cinema, including Ralph Fiennes, have condemned the genocide in Gaza. Oh. I mean, better late than never, rich celebrities. Signatories include Hollywood stars Richard Gere, Susan Sarandon, Spanish director Pedro Almodóvar, and Cannes winners Ruben Östlund, Michael A., Justin Triet, and Costa Gavras also denounced the death of Hassouna. She was killed along with 10 relatives in an Israeli strike on her family in northern Gaza. De Niro was the guest of honor in the opening ceremony, receiving an honorary Palme d'Or for his contribution to cinema. Slamming tariffs, the dress code. Tom Cruise has returned to Riviera for the premiere of the latest installment of Mission Impossible. There's very little in this article about this apparently groundbreaking signatory of hundreds of filmmakers. More than 380 filmmaker insiders, including the Schindler's List actor Ralph Fiennes and former Cannes winning director, said they were ashamed of the industry's failure to speak out about the Israeli siege of Gaza. We cannot remain silent while genocide is taking place in Gaza. Oh, they're using the term genocide. That's very good. And then a lot of the names are kind of the same ones you've seen since I think the very start who've been speaking out against it.
What he said was,
this is the bill that keeps 4-year-olds out of kindergarten, and it's voluntary for everybody, and I sat down.
The bill also said school districts could use their funding to contract with existing early child care providers. They could get state funding to start a 4-year-old program and use it to hire early childhood education programs already in place.
It, of course, would have to meet the standards, and I did not explain to them that it was going to be Head Start.
But since the bill didn't seem to threaten private childcare's 4-year-old clientele, and very few others fully understood it anyway, no one who actually understood the bill told lawmakers to vote no.
If a lobbyist does not come into your office and explain this law and why you should vote no on it, the legislator doesn't have any help except me.
It passed the House 99-0. Once the word got out about free, high-quality pre-K, Oklahoma parents jumped at the opportunity to enroll their 4-year-olds in their local elementary school.
It got to where they started lining up in the early hours of the morning so that they could be in their neighborhood school.
Part of it was they needed childcare.
Andy and Janet McKenzie taught in early childhood education in Tulsa public schools for 40 years. That's Janet conducting kindergarten assessments in that video back before Oklahoma had free pre-K. These two were instrumental in setting up the existing pre-K program, including in forging the close partnership between Head Start and public schools still in place today.
And I think parents very quickly realized that it was a great place for their child to be.
Offering pre-K in Oklahoma school districts was, and still is, voluntary. But 27 years later, free high-quality education for 4-year-olds is offered in public schools in every school district in Oklahoma. Because even though red states like Oklahoma don't generally support big social policies,
there's nothing really controversial about it at this point. It's established, there are results, families are happy, communities are happy.
They know it's a good program. They see the success of the children and how much they love school.
in Oklahoma, pre-K is just when school begins.
I don't run into anybody anymore that doesn't know that there's a pre-K program.
It's there, it's just part of what we offer, and most of them, because they need it for childcare, go ahead and sign up.
Implementing universal pre-K isn't easy or cheap. You need qualified teachers, and often construction of new facilities. But the biggest lesson from Oklahoma for me was if states can find a way to do this, whether it's through groups of dedicated advocates and educators demonstrating why it's good for kids and parents, or it's through a little wheelin' and dealin', the programs, once in place, are beloved across the political spectrum.
It's a wonderful program and fills the need of a lot of parents. Where do they want their children to be when they're 4 years old?
Just this year, a Republican lawmaker in Oklahoma introduced a bill that would expand free pre-K to all 3-year-olds in the state. It hasn't passed, with some lawmakers noting the pressure it would put on private early childhood education systems.
This is a shockingly wholesome story, though. Like, I agree with the chat saying that, like, you know, it almost feels like Republicans got tricked into doing something woke.
But just the fact that a Republican wanted to offer free education to all 3-year-olds is just so Oklahoma.
Maybe Oklahoma is all right, you know? Maybe. We'll see. Oh yeah, just wanted to quickly hear the Diddy updates.
The first witness is now on the stand in the federal sex trafficking trial for Sean Diddy Combs in New York City
Thank you,
after
Agent Sailor.
final jury selection and opening statements this morning. The prosecution portrayed the music mogul as the leader of a criminal conspiracy sex trafficking ring, while the defense rejected that, saying trying to turn Combs' consensual sexual relationships into sex trafficking, quote, will not work. Combs pled not guilty to charges of racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. Joining me now, Christy Greenberg, former SDNY Criminal Division Deputy Chief, former federal prosecutor, and MSNBC legal analyst. So, Christy, you were inside the courtroom. Tell us what it was like in there.
Well, it was packed. There were 2 rows full of Sean Combs' family and friends, as well as other members of the media and other members of the public that were very interested to learn what was happening. You had 2 opening statements that portrayed a very different image of who Sean Combs is. You had the prosecutors saying that this man ran a criminal enterprise for over 20 years, that he engaged in using force and coercion in order to make 2 separate victims engage in these commercial sex acts, these freak-offs that they did not want to participate in. And then you had the other side, which is the defense, having Sean Combs stand up and show a different side of him and say, look, he's indefensible in terms of committing domestic violence, but that doesn't mean he's a sex trafficker. That doesn't mean he engaged in racketeering. And trying to make this distinction and really focusing on the victims.
What is up with these pictures, by the way?
Victims and trying to turn the jurors' focus to the victims and say, look, they were strong, capable women, and they made a choice. Now, I think that will ultimately be a difficult thing for the defense to show because of all the evidence the prosecutors in the opening statement said that they had, showing that actually these women really weren't making a choice. You have the video of Cassie where, you know, Sean Combs is beating her, striking her, dragging her out of that hallway video when she was trying to leave one of these freak-off sessions. That doesn't exactly look like a choice. We also heard from the prosecutors that there are text messages where one of the victims, known as Jane, is saying, I don't want to engage in these freak-offs. I don't want to do this. And then there are apparently also recorded calls that we are going to hear between Sean Combs and Jane, in which Sean Combs is offering her money and telling her to say that she wanted to engage in these freak-offs. None of those pieces of corroborating evidence sounds like these women.
I love that the news has to say freak-off sessions like it's normal. I know that term is used so much now.
Had a choice. So I think that is going to be really critical evidence for the prosecution. And just one last point. Even if there is the sex trafficking charges, but there are 2 charges, one for each victim, of transporting these women across state lines for the purposes of prostitution. Those charges do not require force, fraud, or coercion. So consenting adults traveling across state lines for the purpose of prostitution, if he did that, he is guilty. So these arguments about the women had a choice, they're not really a defense to these transportation for prostitution charges. I think those charges in particular will be very difficult for the defense to overcome.
Let me ask you about the jury. As I understand, 8 men, 4 women, all from Manhattan, the Bronx, Westchester County, north of Manhattan. Includes everyone from an investment analyst, a physician's assistant, scientist, UN worker. I think several of them said that they've seen the video of Combs assaulting Cassie Ventura in an LA hotel hallway. I wonder what your thoughts are on this jury and its makeup.
Well, as you said, more men than women. That's generally not what you'd want to see when you're prosecuting sex trafficking cases. You'd like to see more women on that jury.
That's sad. That shouldn't be the case.
Very diverse jury.
Spat on us men.
And both in their backgrounds, in their jobs, in their educational backgrounds. So bringing a lot of different experiences. But yes, they've all seen a very critical piece of evidence for the most part. And the defense acknowledged that in the opening, that yes, many of you have seen this video. And please keep an open mind and please try to separate what you've seen before coming into this courtroom from what you're going to see in the courtroom.
That is remarkable composure, can I just say, with all those emergency vehicles going behind you.
Yeah, impressive.
Christy Greenberg, lawyer and reporter extraordinaire, thank you so much. I know.
Yeah, I would definitely be like, I have too much ADHD to keep saying a sentence right now. All I'm thinking about is sirens, so I'm just gonna have to wait a little while. Oh, there's more sirens. They're getting louder. I don't know what to say at this point. All right, I gotta talk about David Hogg. David Hogg dropped by DNC, or at least dropped from his position. I don't know the full details yet. This is just so wild to me. You have put us lefties in such a weird position where I'm supposed to have to stand up here and defend a milquetoast liberal like David Hogg, who's not a radical, who's not proposing anything that's really going to be transformative or change the future for the better in ways that I think are necessary and transformative at this very moment in time. Instead, we have someone who said what I believe to be the bare minimum of just human decency at this point, that yeah, if there are feckless, corrupt, and completely useless Democrats who are basically not willing to do anything to try and help the American people during a fascist takeover of all times, then maybe you should primary the fuck out of them. Doesn't seem that wild, radical, extreme, whatever you want to say. But apparently it really pissed off James Carville, who got real mad, you know, and then said David Hogg is a traitor kind of shit. But then David Hogg did what most people who know how to play, I guess, the game and want to be pretty, you know, comfortable corporate Democrats did is he made up and they had a very friendly conversation, and then it seemed like they weren't mad at David Hogg anymore. But then David Hogg went on Bill Maher's show and basically did a Gavin Newsom, where he was talking about that same shit that all these terrible Democrats are doing, where they're like, we really lost the American people. This should have been a wake-up call. Maybe we've gone too much into this whole cancel culture stuff. And, we used to be the fun party, with Bill Clinton and the saxophone and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know what happened to us. Now we're just all about virtue signaling and purity testing. And we need to go back to being the fun party.
In all honesty, I'm not sure anybody actually cares about David Hogg or Kenyatta. I'm not sure who the other individual is. But the Democrats, the DNC, held a procedural vote to remove David Hogg as vice chair. You see, David Hogg told a bunch of incumbent Democrats, we are going to primary you. He said we need to stop being a party that just, it's like walking on eggshells around. Now, I think the dude is what's the right word? He has no idea what he's talking about half the time. Like when it came to Kilmar Abrego Garcia, and in order to maintain the woke cult-like adherence to his orthodoxy, he says he was not an MS-13 gang member, and you damn well know it. Oh boy. My friends, we're planning a
There's no evidence of that.
Trivia night for Culture War Live, where we're going to dedicate a portion of the show to a trivia game show where liberals and conservatives must answer questions about politics. And an example of one of the questions we'd use is going to be, in which year was Kilmar Abrego Garcia adjudicated as an MS-13 gang member? And, of course, the liberals are going to be like, that's a trick question. He never was.
He was?
And the answer, of course, is 2019.
Okay.
The answer was 2019. A judge found him to be a member of MS-13. We are not saying, we are not asserting whether it's true or not. The question was, when was it adjudicated as such? You see, these people don't know what they're talking about.
I'm sorry, are you just saying the word adjudicated? Well, I mean, if it was said within the confines of a court of law and there was a judge involved, it was adjudicated. That's not what these words mean. Family is hardworking man, his arrest. Trump, for his part, told ABC News in an interview last week that Abrego Garcia was an MS-13 gang member. Tough cookie. Been in lots of skirmishes. Beat the hell out of his wife, and his wife was petrified to even talk about him, okay? This is not an innocent, wonderful man from Maryland. At least initially, both sides agree that Alberta Garcia's deportation to El Salvador and subsequent imprisonment in the country's notorious mega prison was a mistake, the result of a clerical error that moved him up on the list to land on a flight manifest. A senior immigration customs enforcement official called it a, quote, administrative error in a court declaration. So, adjudicated, as Tim would say. But in other Trump administration officials have since publicly abandoned that position and called him a terrorist because the U.S. has designated MS-13 as a terrorist organization. Abrego Garcia's deportation has been the basis of a fraught legal battle that's included tense confrontations between a judge in Maryland and the Justice Department, eventually landing at the Supreme Court, which has ordered the Trump administration to facilitate his return. The government asserts that Abrego Garcia is a terrorist and a member of MS-13, perhaps, but perhaps not. Regardless, he's still entitled to due process. To report a fuller picture of Abrego Garcia's life, not represented in the court documents or descriptions from his lawyer, CNN spoke to more than a dozen people who know him. Exact age, pivotal arrest. Where's the MS-13 part? I still can't believe Trump thought this was a literal part of tattoos when someone was like, all right, so this image, sir, will help you to be able to show that he in fact had MS-13 tattoos by showing you the representative letters and numbers that we believe these tattoos are indicative of. So you can't get confused on anything. The marijuana leaf is an M for marijuana. The smiley face is an S for smiley, even though that's not how you say smiley face in Spanish. But don't worry, he was being extra tricky. The cross, well, clearly it's one, right? There's but one God. Don't be blasphemous. And a skull, it could be a 3 because there's 3 holes at the top. Exclude the mouth. Don't think about that, or the fact that the nose is actually consistent with 2 holes, or the ears. But you don't see the ears in the picture, so we'll say 3 just because 3, right? So that one's easy too. There you go. You got it. Trump himself has repeatedly touted a photo showing those symbols and what appear to be digitally added annotation showing MS-13 on Abrego Garcia's knuckles. Gang experts who studied MS-13 on CNN said the actual symbols on his fingers are not recognized indicators of membership in the gang. The government has further described him as a human trafficker because he was pulled over in a trip from Texas to Maryland with multiple people in the car and no luggage. Abrego Garcia was not arrested, and his wife was subsequently transported other workers between job sites. The government has also taken the unusual step of publishing 2 requests for protective orders against Vaqueira, filed in the early of the couple's marriage, reflecting that she told police her husband had become violent during their argument multiple times. Vaqueira has said that she and Abrego Garcia worked through those issues and that they don't justify his removal to El Salvador. When does he join MS-13? Thousands of miles, described as traumatized. I don't see that. Maybe I have to find it somewhere else.
About half the time. But anyway, I digress. The funny thing about this story is that the Democrats are in, well, a civil war. There, I said it. But the thing is, they need to unify around.
That, again, that word has no meaning if you just say it to facilitate disagreement. Mr. Abrego Garcia has acknowledged he entered the U.S. illegally in 2012, according to court documents. In March 2019, he was detained along with 3 people in Heathsville, Maryland, in the car park of a Home Depot. Officers of the Prince George County Police Department said the men were loitering and subsequently identified Mr. Abrego Garcia and 2 other members of MS-13. In a document titled Gang Field Interview Sheet, the local police detailed their observations. They said Mr. Abrego Garcia was wearing a Chicago Bulls hat and a hoodie with rolls of money covering the eyes, ears, and mouth of the president on separate denominations. Officers claimed the clothing was, quote, indicative of the Hispanic gang culture, and that wearing the Chicago Bulls hat represents their members in good standing with MS-13. Steve Dudley, a journalist and author who spent years studying the MS-13 gang, said that while it is true at some point the Chicago Bulls logo with the horns became a stand-in for sorts for the MS-13's devil horn symbol, but wearing the logo of the hugely popular basketball team, he added, is of course not exclusive to the gang. Any assertion about gang affiliation would need to be corroborated with testimony, criminal history, and other cooperating evidence. According to a field interview sheet and other court documents, officers said they were also advised that there was a proven and reliable source that Mr. Abrego Garcia was a member of MS-13's Western clique with the rank of Chiqueo. However, Mr. Dudley said that that is not a rank, but instead is used to refer to recruits who are yet to be initiated. The White House has also alleged that the tattoos on his hands, the marijuana leaf, smiley face, cross, and skull, are gang symbols. That is not also true. They're open to interpretation, as is anything in life. Lawyers for Mr. Abrego Garcia argued in court the Western clique is based in New York and that they said their client has never lived. According to the government documents, he's dismissed information given to police against him as hearsay. According to his lawyers, Mr. Abrego Garcia is never convicted of any criminal offense, including gang membership in the U.S. or El Salvador. He's lived in the U.S. for 14 years, has 3 children, working construction, according to court documents. The judge who presided over his 2019 case said that based on confidential information, there was sufficient evidence to support Mr. Abrego Garcia's gang membership. That finding was later upheld by another judge. As a result, Mr. Abrego Garcia was refused bail and remained in custody. During this time, he applied to asylum to prevent his deportation to El Salvador. In 2019, he was granted a withholding of removal order. Court documents show a status different from asylum, but one which prevented the U.S. government from sending him to El Salvador on the grounds that he could face harm. Mr. Abrego Garcia's lawyers said he was granted the status based on his well-founded fear of persecution by Barrio 18, the rival gang of MS-13. He said that before entering the U.S., his family and their businesses have been threatened and extorted by Barrio 18. Since 2019, when he was released in the protective order, Mr. Abrego Garcia's lawyers said that he has had yearly check-ins with immigration officials, which he has attended without fail and without incident. So, based on confidential information, they said that there was sufficient evidence in 2019 to support Mr. Abrego Garcia's gang membership. But that is, I guess, where Tim is coming at this from, saying that that counts as adjudication. Because we will ask the libs, and we will ask the Republicans, when was he adjudicated for being a member of MS-13? That's a weird way of phrasing that. But if you're saying that without any evidence outside of confidential information that they stated that he is in fact part of a gang affiliation, that's what you're going with, I guess. That's as far as it goes. There's really nothing else to it. Unless you think, of course, all these sources are dubious. Looney Tunes 9000. Thank you.
On a core set of ideals that's going to win them the midterm elections and win them 2028, and it appears they don't have any. Not even David Hogg could try to come in and say, let's try to win back young men. They were like, nah, you got to go. That's funny. Not even David Hogg could make it in. The DNC is garbage. It's always been garbage. But these people, you know, I'll tell you, I feel bad for David Hogg a little bit. Look, these young people, they're naive. I remember when Bernie Sanders was running and I was all like, oh boy, Bernie Sanders. And then the superdelegates came in and said, nah. I remember Obama.
Just curious what actually happened. Leaders We Deserve was pouring $20 million to help fund young candidates who will challenge incumbents in safe blue districts. DNC Chairman Ken Martin has urged officials to remain neutral in primary elections, giving Hogg an ultimatum for resigning from the committee or divorcing himself from his organization. The Credentials Committee of the DNC voted in favor of a resolution on Monday recommending voting in February election has made Hogg and Malcolm Kenyatta vice chairs. The vote comes after Oklahoma DNC member Kaylin Free, who ran for the vice chair position, argued in a complaint that the procedure in which Hogg and Kenyatta was elected unfairly disadvantaged the female candidates on the ballot. The Credentials Committee has issued the recommendation, and I trust the DNC members will carefully review the committee's resolution and resolve this matter fairly. I thank all of our officers for their service, including vice chairs. Though the DNC claims recent votes has nothing to do with the neutrality pledge, Hogg alleged in a statement it is impossible to ignore the broader context of my work to reform the party, which loomed large over this vote. I ran to be DNC vice chair to help the Democratic Party better, not to defend an indefensible status quo that has caused voters in almost every demographic group to move away from us. The DNC has pledged to remove me, and the vote has provided an avenue to fast-track that effort. I mean, it's kind of fucked. Again, when things are as bad and terrible as they are in the United States, that's someone who's not proposing anything fucking radical. Like simply saying, hey, by the way, I've got a company that seems to have quite a bit of funding, by the way, that has $20 million in backing to primary younger candidates who I believe are actually up to the task of, you know, doing the job once they're elected, instead of all these old people who seem to want to do nothing outside of just maintain power. That doesn't seem like aggressive by any stretch. It's pretty wild. And I also wanted to see Joe finds Jesus. Jesus, the time is here. We lost Dave Rubin, by the way. Dave Rubin used to be one of the foremost atheists on the internet, but then he decided, hey, by the way, I get more money if I say I love God. And so Dave Rubin is now a Christian. Russell Brand used to be a Gnostic and a skeptic. Then, of course, he was accused pretty credibly of being a pedophile rapist. And then all of a sudden he found Jesus. That was fast. All of a sudden he's like, yeah, Jesus is king, Christ is king and Lord, and I found him, and he was just hanging out in my room the whole time.
Yes. And it's funny because people would be incredulous about the resurrection of Jesus Christ, but yet they're convinced that the entire universe was smaller than the head of a pin, and for no reason than anybody's adequately explained to me. Makes sense.
Yeah, no,
instantaneously became everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't buy that.
I'm sticking with Jesus.
You know what's funny about this is this used to be the exact same argument that atheists did in the opposite direction. Back in the day when Rogan used to be one of the people who's like, it's just so wild, you know, how many of these people are always telling us that we got to believe in like Christ and stuff. And now all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I mean, you are being asked upon faith to believe in something of which you cannot know for certainty whether it is or is not true. That's I think why the whole atheist movement had such a popular hold on early YouTube in the early days. People love being right, and this is something of which a lot of people think they're right. We're talking billions of human beings on the planet believe in a deity and some kind of religious prophecy and the idea of the afterlife and all that kind of stuff. So don't you want to be kind of like just a snarky little edgelord online and be like, haha, I can prove that these books are not truth? Because this one, for example, was written before the germ theory of disease existed. And so I know it not to be true because we know more about the world now than they did when these books were written. So, you fools.
Yeah. On that one.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus makes more sense.
It's a growing trend. Young people are finding the church expressing interest in Jesus Christ. Many people in this country are starting to become Christian or return to their faith. Notably, Russell Brand famously got baptized and is now a Christian. Even many pro skateboarders who are largely viewed as...
Holy shit, Tim's right, actually. There's actual footage of it. It's happening.
Because we love you, God. So we do it for Jesus Christ. Put on salvation as your helmet and take the sword of the Spirit, which is the sword of God. So put on.
Oh, yeah.
Armor of God. Jesus Christ.
Yes.
I love you, God. Bam, I'm true.
It's happening right now. Here it is. Gen Alpha, Gen Z, bringing the light of the Lord into their lives. It's happening. Nice. Power stance.
Right here. Hey, helmet of salvation. Jesus Christ. Look.
I know it's catchy to shit on atheists on the left because the grifters that exploited the community in the early days of YouTube. Those same grifters moved into the Twitch politics sphere where you reside and did the exact same shit before moving on, so please keep that in mind. I was one of those people, not a YouTuber atheist, but I was one of the people who was really huge into reading all of those fucking people's books, like Christopher Hitchens. I read almost all of his catalog. Richard Dawkins. Didn't like Sam Harris, I'm proud to say. And Daniel Dennett is still the only one who's still good. So good on you, Daniel Dennett, for doing what you did because you actually care about evolutionary biology and stuff. But I was obsessed with Christopher Hitchens. I thought he was one of the most brilliant writers of any generation until 9/11 happened, and then all of a sudden he went from being like, oh yes, I am a socialist and I believe in ending a lot of the capitalist exploitation of the world, into we need to kill all of those evil Muslims who are radicalized and jihadists and trying to take down Western culture, aka white culture. So we need to invade their lands and bomb the fuck out of them. Otherwise, they will all read the sacred text and become radicalized and kill all of the West. So that was terrible to see. That part was disappointing. Yeah, but I know how deep that rabbit hole goes. I can read you passages from God is not great, or how religion poisons everything, and I even read Letter to a Christian Nation by Sam Harris, but I hated him. I even back then I was like, you're just a pretentious piece of shit, you know. At least it seemed like Hitchens and Dawkins were coming. Well, Hitchens was also a pretentious piece of shit, but it seemed like they were coming from a place of genuine curiosity. And Dawkins had the background, right? He had worked his whole life in biology, and so I thought that he, especially his books on science, the Selfish Gene was really, really good. And so was a lot of the other stuff he wrote, and I had no reason not to enjoy this man. And as time went on, it was pretty evident that every single one of them were just racists. Just that they were just masking their racism with the veneer of like, this is coming from an academic standpoint where we're trying to dispel the mythos of all religions. Okay, all religions equally, all religions matter. They're all evil. But there's one particularly insidious one that's more evil than the rest. And that line still continues to this day. Like, you still hear people today trying to be like, well, we need to actually talk about radical Muslim extremists and why, at the end of the day, like, there's something specific about the words in the Quran that simply radicalizes people at a rate of which other nations are not capable of doing, or other scriptures, or other religions, or ethnicities, or dominations. It's so bad. And then eventually you're like, why didn't I see this? That's a shame on me moment. A big shame on me. I should have seen that from the get-go,
Degenerates. They don't really make a lot of money. They do drugs. They hang out. They're not even rock stars. Many of these pro skateboarders we're finding, they're getting baptized. Oh. Joe Rogan may be a great example of this shift when he said, he's sticking with Jesus in questioning the Big Bang Theory. Now, I'm not saying Joe's a Christian guy. I'm not saying that in this article.
It sounded like he was being a little flippant, kind of just silly, like a bit almost, where the person's like, you're trying to tell me that I'm supposed to believe that, like, this just came out of nowhere, like all of a sudden, something that was smaller than a pin. Well, actually, Joe, theoretically much smaller than a pin. I would say at a degree of which we can't even comprehend, if you want to talk about where the quantum realm lies. But no, I think most agnostics, and I would say scientists who approach this from a curiosity standpoint, have always said, we don't know. But that's awesome. Not that we'll never know, but as of now, we don't know. That's why it's so much fun to speculate. Because it's one of those unknowable parts of our existence that is certainly a profound and deeply, deeply personal question as to where do you think your role in existence comes from? Do souls exist? Are you conscious? Are you simply a series of synapses and chemicals firing off in a small little brain encased in a skull? Are you a series of ones and zeros being played out in a simulation right now? Both could be entirely real. We don't know. And as of right now, these are the limits of our understanding. We know that there was a point that we call the singularity where two forces combined, and that caused an expansion of both time and space. And we don't know what those two forces were that collapsed. Was it the universe collapsing upon itself? Is it a kind of like a phoenix universe universe that continues to replicate itself over and over in perpetuity until it has the great freeze and contraction and then creates the universe again? We don't know. That's the cool thing. We don't know. My only problem with religion comes in someone forcing you to have to accept this is what we know. That's and then you now have to obey and do laws or follow guidelines based on the principles of, again, these old medieval texts that, like, you couldn't have known. I think it's totally fair to say you don't know. What I had to improve upon myself was this idea of being the edgelord atheist or agnostic person who's just like, religion should not exist because it destroys society and all this kind of stuff. It's like the vast majority of modern day religious people in your lives, most likely, they go to church because it gives them a sense of community, family, they get the tradition, maybe it makes them closer to their history, their own, family ties to, some form of religion. Whatever it is, it's not on me to say you should have a right to do that. That's just fucking garbage. In the same way, that you're doing the same thing that religious zealots do. If you're like, you also are not allowed to believe, you must be a forced atheist or shit like that. So yeah, I can sympathize people on that end, but yeah, that's my problem with just basically stating that religions of any kind should have special privilege. I don't believe any of them should have tax exemption. I don't believe that they should be allowed to be a basis for law. I don't believe that they should be allowed to be a basis for how we force other people to behave within a society. Any of that kind of shit. I think once you get into that, that's dangerous. That's bad. Do not do that. And again, if you don't recognize the danger that, say, Christian nationalism plays in the West, especially, and the rising use of the weaponized bastardization of religion, and that happens across the board. By the way, there are people who bastardize religions or ethnicities or groups and use them for their own insidious purposes. And then if you try to criticize them, they'll use that as a defense for that criticism. But ultimately, yeah.
Well, he's professing his faith in Jesus. The point he's making is that Jesus seems more probable than the Big Bang. Interesting nonetheless, because that's the path you walk down where you end up saying you're going to be Christian. But this is a growing trend. Let me play this clip for you. We played a little bit in the intro.
Christians, is that how it works? I never assumed that. I don't think most people start from that as your jumping off point. I really came down to, is the Big Bang something that could have happened? Is it plausible? Or is Jesus, a man existing, plausible? And the man existing sounds more plausible. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, it very well could have been a person who existed at that point in time, who went by the name of Jesus of Nazareth, who was, again, a Jewish man, who was a prophet, who lived in Palestine and wanted to, teach lessons about solidarity and the poor and, being welcoming and kind to one another. That probably could have happened. Very, very likely. Yeah. Also true that the Big Bang could happen. I don't know. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I don't think it's like you either got to believe in Jesus, right? Or you got to believe in the Big Bang. There's no in between here.
True. But I want to show you this clip. We have this from the Postmonial. Podcast host Joe Rogan has once again expressed growing interest in Christianity during his recent episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, telling the guests he finds the idea of Jesus Christ increasingly compelling and even more logical than scientific explanations. He was speaking with writer and TikToker Cody Tucker. Rogan said, "I'm sticking with Jesus."
But what about the Immaculate Conception? Well, no, I don't think that's possible because it's not something that happens in reality. We don't have that. The same thing with like the transformation of water to wine. We don't have that in our own reality. So I don't think that there was a human being doing that. I don't think that he was born of a virgin birth. I don't think that the super spiritual semen of God entered into a woman and then she gave birth to Jesus. I don't think that part is real, just because, again, there's no basis in reality for any of that happening. But could there have been a person who went by the name Jesus of Nazareth and existed in the real world? Of course.
Jesus makes more sense. People have come back to life. Let me play the clip for you. You can hear it in its entirety.
That one. Well, space is the ultimate who the fuck knows, because we can only see so far. We see so far, but even so far is only so far.
I'm going to pause. I do want to kind of dissect a lot of what they're saying. The first thing you always got to understand about philosophy of knowledge, we actually don't know. We don't see it.
For the love of fuck, America, open the schools. Y'all are going to be so doomed. The future is going to be there will be no public education because it's been completely destroyed and uprooted. And then there are going to be so many lost boys who have to turn to podcasting for a modern day education. They're going to be sitting there with people like Joe Rogan being like, bro, it's fucking crazy though. Like the thing about space is that like we haven't seen all of it. Like we've seen a lot of it. There's like a lot of it we can see. But then there's like stuff we can't see. And then there's like theoretical stuff. Like we don't even know if it's there, dog. Like it could be there, right? But it could also not. But maybe there's a force and it's pulling things apart. It's wild, right? And then you could, if that's not your flavor, you could also listen to Tim Pool offering his criticism on Joe Rogan's deep thoughts and then adding, okay, so the thing is, my friends, we don't know. And I don't know if they'll tell you that, right? Like, again, you know, the deep state might try and lie about this kind of stuff, but we don't actually know what's out there. It's wild.
At all. We have faith. This is an important understanding many people do not have. Like I had this.
We have faith. I guess, you know, to a certain extent, if I was to once again be charitable here, like, true, I have not actually left the Earth and left the stratosphere even and gone to go see what life is like on other planets. So I can't say for certain that there even is things like Jupiter or the moon itself. I mean, I do see it, but like that could be an illusion itself. Like we don't know. So on faith, yes, I got to believe that what I read is consistent. But like I felt that it's pretty neat how if you look at the way the scientific inquiry builds upon itself and one another and other mediums and other disciplines, I should say, other disciplines, that's cool. I've always loved that. I've always loved that you can take elements of chemistry and combine them with archaeology or biology and that they can actually make predictions that will fit into the way the world works. And that goes back all the way to the early thinkers who were capable of witnessing celestial bodies and then understanding why do they move at night and why do they go to other parts and what does this all mean? And then start to think of like, oh shit, maybe we aren't the center of the universe. Oh shit, maybe we aren't flat. Oh shit, maybe this is round. Oh, is that why shadows exist? Is that why? Because based on when sunlight hits the surface of the earth and the curvature of the earth itself is actually going to change the way the light reflects upon the earth. That's cool. You get to build upon these one upon another. And just because you get to the limits of those doesn't mean that all of a sudden it's like, oh, and then Jesus. Well, it's just that we don't know. We have no idea when, you know, we have estimates, you know, in terms of years as to when things like the Big Bang occurred, how it actually, you know, expanded and then how we started out with just a few elements that eventually combined to create all life that we know today. Like, yeah, we don't understand completely how that started, but Jesus, we got to go Jesus with that one.
It's argument with Ian over and over and over again, but people are convinced everything they were told is true. No. The only thing that I know is that I know nothing. That's true.
Great job.
I believe some things because I've chosen to. For instance, Joe says we can only see so far. Joe? Maybe he has. So I won't speak for him, but most people have not actually looked through any of these telescopes. They've not actually looked at any of these planetary bodies. They just believe it because...
By the way, this is the same arguments that flat earthers use. You just chose to believe the earth is round. Have you ever seen the earth? Have you ever left and looked at it? Was it round? Nah, you just believe that like a sheeple. That's how that happens. And it's like, oh, but there's just so many things that would not be possible. Like planes, like flight paths, right? They wouldn't work at all if the earth wasn't round. Time, our measurement of it, days, weeks, months, all that stuff, what a year is. Have you ever sat down and thought about that and why it is that we measure it in a very specific way? What contributes to that form of measurement? But yeah, it's true. You're right. You got me there, flat earthers. I have not actually left the earth to see it. We have the technology to do that. I can see it on but that could be faked. You're right. Someone else could have taken a picture of the earth with a camera, but then it could be an altered photo. So we gotta go back. What if the earth was a hollow donut though? Yeah, that's true. Just riding on the back of a turtle's dream.
Someone told it to them. Some people have done the research. And I happen to be more of a man of science than religion.
Okay.
But there is, and I'll explain why, but let me play more.
And then they're saying like it's always expanding, which that can't be true, because like what is it expanding into? If space is space, you know, if they're like, oh, it's like blowing up a balloon where everything's okay.
Oh my God, it's like, hasn't Joe had on Neil deGrasse Tyson? I'm not a Neil deGrasse Tyson and his accusations defender, but the man does know a lot about this very topic, and he could definitely stand to correct the conversation that is happening. In fact, he would embarrass Joe right now if Joe actually agreed with the statement. How do we know that space is expanding? What even is expanding space? Where does space go when it expands? Because, you know, in your head, you've probably got the idea of a monitor, right? Like all of existence in terms of my stream right now and everything you know about me really just exists in a cube. How can you even know that I'm real, that this is a stream, that I'm not a part of AI, or I'm not a sophisticated systems of ones and zeros? I mean, you can't really see beyond the corners of your monitor right now, or your cell phone, or if you're watching me on a Switch. I don't know if you can do that, but that's cool to everyone watching me on Switch right now. But yeah, I mean, like, we don't fully understand the processes. That's true. It's theoretical physics, which is what I think makes it so exciting. But I love the idea of there being forces that we don't fully understand, but we're trying to understand them. Dark matter, for instance, we don't fully understand if it is, in fact, one of the things that is pulling space apart. But it is a fascinating concept, that one we should know more about. But I'm not going to discount the totality of even thinking about that kind of stuff based on, but you don't know, do you, bro? No, I don't. See, I can't see things at the atomic level, let alone at the quantum level, so I can't tell you if string theory is real. It doesn't even fully make sense to me, to be completely honest. Just a series of vibrations really are what making the universe. And then if you get into quantum theory too, that doesn't fully make sense to me either, that there are certain quantum particles that can both exist and not exist within our own reality simultaneously in like what? But neat, you know, cool. It's not going to get me to fucking dispel scientific inquiry because I don't fully understand these concepts, so they don't make sense in my own brain, right? I wouldn't be like, yeah, they want you to believe that though, bro. You know, trying to tell you about things like quantum foam, bro. Like, what the fuck, bro? Like, what? Have you ever seen quantum foam? No, seen my own foam though. Lol, yeah.
You're blowing up a balloon in a room,
right?
So what's the room that you're blowing the balloon?
Right.
And then that's in a bigger room, and then that's in this.
Not right. It may be. Well, actually, I'll let you.
Then there's the concept that it's actually finite. It's not.
I love how he chose this as a video to react to kind of come at this from a position of intelligence. By the way, unlike this guest, I'm not entirely sure who he is, but this seems to be a religious man. I'd like to approach this from science, so I can tell you right now about whether they are in fact being truthful or not. So give me a second here.
And it's some sort of donut shape. It like
Lord.
We have no idea.
Goes back
Who
around.
was asking about donut universe?
Then who made all that?
Right.
Like, is there a God? Did God make this?
Or is God the universe?
Or super God?
Yeah, but then who made God? And then that bothers me.
Right, but
like, who made that thing?
Is that a thing that we think that, like, because we were born and we die, that we have?
This just feels like being back in fucking grade 11 all over again. Not that I would ever use drugs, but the people who did, eat those mushrooms, that weed, and then hang out in the hot box with their friends for a long time. Once you get through the Pink Floyd album a couple times and you're still sitting there, and then someone's like, how do we know what we know, Have you ever thought about that? What do you mean? Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, if God made everything, who made God? Ever thought about that? Oh, man. And then, like, would someone then make that God? Like, God squared? And then is there God cubed? Is there like a 4D God, right? Or is there like a God of gods? Or maybe there's like a God within a God. Or maybe the universe is God, bro.
I'm losing my fucking mind. Like generally speaking, Chinese people look Chinese.
The next time you get in trouble, call a crackhead.
That's what I was looking for.
Have these biological limitations that we attach to the universe itself.
That's fair. That we see things as being built and destroyed.
That there's always been something. Well, wouldn't it be crazy if there wasn't something at one point in time?
Yeah.
That seems even crazier. Then there always has been something. Because if it's just the nature of everything, there is always something. right?
Right.
It couldn't be nothing and then all of a sudden everything. That seems...
Because what started that? What kicked that off?
Exactly.
What snapped its fingers? Like
That's McKenna's great line. Terrence McKenna had a great line about the difference between science and religion is that science only asks you for one miracle. I want you to believe in one miracle, the Big Bang.
Yeah. That's a good one.
It's a great line.
Yeah. Wait, what? I all of it is miraculous. Even the concept of a wormhole is pretty miraculous.
It's because it really is true.
Yes.
And it's funny because people would be incredulous about the resurrection of Jesus Christ, but yet they're convinced that the entire universe was smaller than the head of a pin. And for
That's just so unfair, though, because I've never seen like an atheist scientist be like, and you have to believe this.
Clean up your room.
It's like this is the limits of our current understanding of the known universe, and we're always gathering new information as we do, and other disciplines, collaborate together. We start to have a better picture. But the neatest thing about this is, as we learn more, it becomes infinitely more complex and mysterious and strange than we ever thought possible. And that's just going to be part of our journey as we learn more about why exactly are we here.
no reason that anybody's adequately explained to me.
Yeah, but if I can't explain it, magic! Hey, are you going to explain to me how exactly the Big Bang happened? Oh, absolutely. So at a moment in time, no. I don't want to hear the official textbook nerd shit. What happened before the Big Bang, Einstein? Gotcha. Oh, I mean, we're not entirely sure. There are multiple theories on this. I don't want to hear your theories. What, did multiple planes coming together? There was some kind of a cataclysmic event. Yeah, no, I don't care about that. I want you to answer it. And if you can't answer it, the answer is Jesus. Yeah, because ain't no one disputing Jesus.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah, no.
Instantaneously
Wavell,
became everything.
Clean up your room.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't buy that.
I'm sticking with Jesus on
Yeah.
that one. Like, Jesus makes more sense.
This is the funny thing.
It was a joke. Shame on me. I feel bad. I'm the one reacting to the reaction here. Now, obviously, the post-millennial is going to post a story. Joe Rogan says he's sticking with Jesus, questions the Big Bang Theory. Anything to just promote this kind of Christian nation style. Oh, hey, by the way, one of the biggest agnostics in the game is starting to say that he's starting to feel a little closer to Jesus. So there you have it.
Religion, creationism, evolution, science. Now, I think it's fair to say that some things are easily observable by the average person.
Interesting fourth thing.
What I can say is I have here this hilarious rubber mallet.
Okay.
Raymond left it here. And I know that if I bashed my monitor...
I haven't watched him in a while. How long has he been doing the Carrot Top stuff? Is that a normal thing now? Does he just all right, time for props.
Right now with it would break. See, I do know that's true. However, there are greater questions about, say, what do we breathe in? You can do a simple experiment to know that there is a vacuum and that air exists, and that's what high school science class is for. But there are greater questions we can't answer. How did the universe start? Theoretical astrophysics? We think. You know what happens?
I love that. Some questions one could ask, one per se may inquire as to what exactly composes the very air we breathe. And yet, are you able to answer some of the deepest and most difficult questions in the universe?
This is when we look through these telescopes, we see, I think it's a redshift. I don't even know these things. Let's get the data pulled up while I talk. I'm pretty sure it's the redshift because I just read some of this stuff. Redshift is a phenomenon where light from an object in space appears shifted toward the red end of the spectrum, meaning its wavelengths are stretched and its frequency decreases. What this implies is that the object is moving away from you, because as the universe is expanding and the object is moving away, it makes the light wavelength stretch out. When it's moving towards you, the light is compressing because
he's talking about the Doppler effect.
Moving towards.
What does this have to do with this sentence?
So that's
he
a
said
blue.
prior?
I believe that's a blue shift. I don't know. I'm not a physicist or anything like that. So we did this, and we were like, hey, everything is kind of redshifting and moving away from us. So the universe is expanding, and it looks like it's expanding faster. Well, back in the day, there were a handful of theories. There was solid state theory. There's big crunch theory, the argument that the universe will expand outward but then collapse back inward. All of those, they're just ideas. And there's a battle of math trying to figure out what is true and what isn't.
battle.
Joe Rogan is not wrong. Now, the funny thing is, he said people come back to life all the time. He's correct. But that wouldn't be a miracle, would it? Still, it's enough for people to believe that it actually happened. Then we can have a scientific, secular view.
I am so lost so quickly. How did we get here now? See, people come back from life all the time, which is true. It depends what you mean coming back from life, I guess.
View of what Jesus is, in that he's a man who preached this new view of Judaism, essentially, of Christianity, what it came to be. And when they crucified and stabbed him, some have argued, these are secular individuals, he didn't actually die. He was comatose. And when they put him in the cold, dark cave, it slowed down his functions so that he didn't bleed out and die instantly, allowing him to recover.
I'm sorry, who is this for? What's the audience for this? I think this would piss off Christians who are like, don't try and rationalize a miracle. He died, and then there is no prophecy if he does not rise again. What the fuck is wrong with you, blasphemous? And then at the same time, I don't know any atheist is going to be like, this is kind of neat. I like this lane where I can kind of feel that maybe Joe is allowing Jesus into his heart, and at the same time is still going to be skeptical. So he's like a Christian atheist, kind of a new thing, shiny new thing.
For a little bit, and then escape and run away. Or, if you were of the faith, he died. And then...
I'm glad to know this is the level of discourse that's happening right now. It actually set me up for this new show. Have you heard of Actual Friends? Look at these friends. Jillian Michaels? Dave Rubin? Russell Brand? Got a new show together. No, I'm not actually going to make all of us watch this. It's an hour and 30 minutes. I am kind of curious what it's about, though. Because they're actual friends, unlike fake friends.
PST? Yeah. Yep. I don't like it. I don't like it.
Lord, I'd like to enter into this in the spirit of grace and gratitude. Thank you for the life of Dave and bless his marriage with David. Bless Sage and her new and forthcoming nuptials, and Gillian, whatever her amazing deal is. And I can only imagine this.
Is this another PBD show? I don't know. I don't think this one's Valuetainment. I could be wrong. Is it Valuetainment? It seems like an experiment. Dave Rubin. Sage Steele, Russell Brand, and Jillian Michaels of the Actual Friends podcast talk about Joe Biden's first television appearance since leaving office, Dave's speech at the University of Delaware's Biden School of Public Policy and Administration, and his fight with the university professor, Jasmine Crockett skipping the line to the airport, Bernie Sanders' defense of flying private, Sage recently engaged and finding love, Sage moving her daughter out of college after graduating, Disney building a new theme park in Abu Dhabi, massive protests in San Francisco, on and on. Another right-wing show. I just like, how much audience capture can you keep on doing by making more and more of these combinations? We saw Her Take the other day, which is basically yet another, right-wing spin on The View, I guess. And now we have Actual Friends.
It's a very powerful.
Which is opening with a prayer that I don't think, Dave, you are taking seriously here. And you're not supposed to suddenly avert your gaze. I don't know if you're taking Russell Brand seriously enough. I mean, fair enough. Alleged pedophile rapist Russell Brand. Not sure why anyone would want to associate with him at this point. I mean, you could wait until after, the criminal investigation takes place.
Powerful and well-grounded man on the other side of that endeavor that he is supported too. Lord, bless us and let's enter this into a spirit of fun. Thanks for the production team. And thank you, Lord. May all glory be directed towards you. We pray this in the name of your son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
And I got to be honest, so I'm not Christian. So I can't know what it's like to see so many grifters try and hijack your religion specifically to try and rebrand themselves after they've done something horrible, just time and again. It's like, hey, by the way, you've been accused of raping kids. Oh shit, they caught me, eh? Well, what's my play? Born again, I guess. You don't have a lot of options here. Yeah, you pretend to find Jesus, just talk about the scripture, the Holy Ghost, that kind of stuff, do baptisms, and then, just go from there.
Man.
And away we go. And Jillian, I want to find out more about your husband later.
Poor Russell's going to get smashed with that, too. Russell, I'm gay. I'm married to a woman. So you're going to...
That makes even more sense.
Wait, you didn't know that, Dave? I don't know if I believe the premise of this show. I gotta be honest with you. I don't feel the four of you are friends. I don't think you know shit all about each other. Well, I can't wait to talk a little bit more about your husband. Oh, I'm married to a woman. I'm gay. Oh, wow. Do we have some things in common then?
Oh, yeah, it's okay. I gotta,
And I'm married to a man, so it all sort of balances itself out.
Oh, they're friends now.
I got a brother and a business partner. I got
Actual
a 13-year-old son. They all count. Of course, we just lost Sage, too.
Russell, you don't look like you're having fun.
Thank God it's not live. This is like an amazing shot to be frozen on, by the way.
What is the show?
Lesbian, Russell. Lesbian.
Hey, I don't judge people. I don't see color and I don't see sex.
Russell, you were...
I mean, with those glasses, I don't assume he sees anything. Always a bad sign, too, when you gotta wear the fucking darkest shades possible in mid-daylight just to be able to do these shows.
You were quite right about the strange racial dynamic over at the Gasparilla Inn. And every moment you're there, it becomes like more and more bizarre.
Yes, it's difficult to deny that there is a sort of a near 100% white customers, black staff.
Jillian, have you ever been to this place, Gasparilla Island?
No.
So it's Southwest Florida. That's where Tucker lives, actually. And the Gasparilla Inn is like their like elite place. And I just did this event there last night, and the staff was 100% black and the clientele was 100% white. It was like to the point that it was like extremely bizarre, extremely
uncomfortable. Yeah. Like,
oh, I thought he was talking about how amazing it was. It was so great. I just felt like, total meritocracy in action. All the people were where they needed to be, right? Like, it has nothing to do with skin color. It's totally because they were the best people for all the jobs. And me, being the rich white guy, deserves to be waited upon.
like okay.
Yeah.
So weird.
And the logo of the hotel is Florida the way it's supposed to be.
No.
All right, people of the internet, this is the debut episode of the Actual Friends podcast. I'm Dave Rubin. I've brought along some of my actual friends.
You didn't know that one of your actual friends was a lesbian. That's just so wild to me to have someone on your show and be like, I can't wait to meet your husband. Oh, I don't have a husband. Oh, leave this in. It's great banter. Whose idea was this? Because I don't know who actually put this one together. Subscribe to your actual friends VE. Well, they're just starting out, Every Friday at 3 p.m. Entertainment. First episode of the Actual Friends podcast. Get ready. No, DEI is not dead. Dave spars with Biden. Sage is engaged. It's time, mate. Ooh, not getting a lot of response. You got a huge account. Doesn't Russell Brand have millions of followers? 11.2 million followers. You got 755 likes. New show. I could be wrong. This feels like it's a Dave Rubin idea or something, because he seems to be the person throwing the whole thing together. And they're just trying to get it off the ground?
Real human being.
Fully blown. You can't blow up anymore. You can't get any more of what was happening. And now the idea that if you can be deceived by that, you don't belong in the news.
Huge Sage Steele. I don't really know much about her except that she was, I think, a sports broadcaster, and as not, someone who watches a lot of U.S. sports channels and coverage. She's not known to me. Why you would go from being a sports broadcaster to fucking being on this? I have no idea. Like, there can't be, unless, once again, because it's only got 351 followers, and this episode has 69,000 views for Rumble, which means probably 12, right, total views. I have no idea. Is this, once again, hey, Coke brother, can I have $50,000 to make an internet show? And it's like, what's the internet show? It's going to be no frills, just me and my best friends in our bedrooms at home on webcams on a Zoom call and just talking politics, and we'll talk talk whatever politics you want. Money, please. Maybe. You know, could have been something like that. And then, yeah, here you go. Each one of you gets $10,000 per episode and go talk shit about why climate change is fake.
Game.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, guys, I should mention that one of the little gimmicks that we're doing for this show is that each one of us is going to be the moderator. So we're all going to take turns. I'm starting, and then I'll kick it to Sage, and she'll kick it to Russell, and he'll kick it to Jillian, and we'll do that in different orders and all things. So I just happen to be...
She pulled the mic from Win Butler when he said to vote Bernie after winning the NBA Celebrity All-Star Game. Oh, okay. Well, that could have been a hint of things to come.
Starting today. Yeah, Sage, did you see that moment a couple days ago where Jen...
I like how he's like, and here's the twist. All of us are the moderators. Sorry, for what? Are you debating one another, and then you just have to like have high-level ideas and pass off and be like, okay, wait, I'm going to need to be moderated. Jump in here, Russell. What do you have to say?
Psaki on MSNBC
didn't outshine him, and that's when we got Biden. And then
why is that white guy taking a picture outside of the Center for Black Culture?
You might as well have been wearing a Klan outfit.
So I get invited. I get
the uniform of the white man.
And I got to tell you, you guys do as many gigs as I do. You get these strange invites sometime, and I got this invite.
Where they choose to go to school, and as parents, where we choose to allow them to go based on the fact that.
I love a million things about Russell, but one of them is that you guys know, and Sage, you fled to Florida, and Jillian, you're in Florida some part of the year, and there's so many people, everyone flocks to Florida as the promised land of America, but Russell came from the...
Wait, what? I thought it was just like Republicans, rich old retirees. I've never really seen the appeal of going somewhere that's so hyper right-wing now. It never used to be, but, you know. I walked away and I returned to Evil interviewing Evil. They're not interviewing one another. I don't even know what they're doing, honestly. Apparently they're just actual friends having a conversation.
Disney World wheelchairs.
I know.
It's a hack. That's a hack.
It's like Costco. You see all these people, they walk in, and then suddenly they walk in and they can't walk anymore.
That's Matt Berry, that music he put over there. He's a brilliant English comedian. Interesting time for free speech. All of us have an individual and collective responsibility to ensure that our moral and judicial principles are virtuous and grounded in something other than our personal preferences.
Oh, he's probably talking about the case against him. That's good for him to be so open and be like, yeah, we need to actually see justice be served. And hopefully those women can get their day in court for all of the alleged raping of Russell Brand. I posted something about that the other day online, and there was like straight up people in the replies being like, innocent until proven guilty, you fucking piece of shit, you need to die. And it's like, you're going to bat for Russell Brand. I don't know, of all creeps, my dude, I would pick a better avatar here, you know? By the way, I said the other day that all the masks are gone. I was just being totally serious. I don't know if you've been reading Matt Walsh lately. He's just going like full Klansman. There has been a giant psyop conducted for years to convince white people that they aren't native to their own homeland. White South Africans have been there for 15 generations, and yet somehow they still don't count as native. White people have been in the Americas for 500 years, and yet still aren't allowed to call this our native land. It doesn't matter if your great grandfather built a cabin on this land with his own hands, it still isn't your land. It's totally incoherent, but most white people won't accept this framing. Well, you know, I guess the quickest and most rational response would be that I think he understands nothing of colonization, treaty rights, or the fact that the very people whose land that you're trying to take and claim ownership of have not died or surrendered. So there's that. But also, if you want to use South Africa as an example, why didn't they learn Zulu? All the white people who went there. I thought that was a big thing. Assimilation. If you immigrate to another country, that you're supposed to actually learn the culture, the language, you know, and not try to bring over and impose upon other people your own strange customs. Because it's weird how simultaneously you'll hate immigration so much and at the same time just want to colonize other places. That's basically it. Yeah, I hate how immigrants come over here and they won't learn the language and they won't learn English and they don't follow our customs or worship our Christian God. And it's like, but I should go over to that place, bomb the fuck out of it, take all their homes, annex the people, ethnically cleanse or kill them all, and then it's my place. And then at that point, anyone who comes over has to learn my language. Okay, ain't no way I'm learning a third fucking language. So he's pretty intense. Everyone's getting pretty intense, except for maybe Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro seems the only person who's like lowering the amount of support for Trump. He's been saying that Trump's actually a little out of control, which is also kind of wild. I don't know what's going on there. Trouble in Paradise. All right, I'm going to start the Goonernomicon pretty soon. But I did have one last Humanist Report video that I hadn't seen that was interesting to me. Apparently, the propagandists are calling Trump a traitor.
Mr. President, what do you say to people who view that luxury jet as a personal gift to you? Why not leave it behind?
You're ABC fake news, right?
Why not?
It's only ABC. Well, a few of you would. Let me tell you, you should be embarrassed asking that question. They're giving us a free jet. I could say, no, don't give us. I want to pay you $1 billion or 400 million or whatever it is. Or I could say, thank you very much.
I get your point, but South Africa has other languages besides Zulu. Yeah, I mean, I would say the same thing about Swazi. Why won't they learn Swazi? Like this, it's my point remains is that the idea, it's like colonists never think of things in relation to the actual colonization itself, or the like. You'll get the most right-wing Republicans constantly telling you can't assimilate, you got to learn our language, blah, blah, blah. And then meanwhile, a lot of the foundational myths are built on the idea that you came to the land because you were better at killing other people, that you deserve it then because you were better at that, and that's why you deserve all the NyQuil chicken.
And thank you very much is indeed what Donald Trump is saying in response to a free $400 million Boeing 747 that Qatar is giving him to use in lieu of Air Force One. What's wrong with Air Force One, you ask? I don't know, but this new luxury jet is being described as a palace in the skies, so I'm assuming it's better than Air Force One in many ways. And according to Trump, it's not corruption because even though he'll personally benefit from this gift, it really is a gift to the country if you think about it, because ownership of the plane will be transferred to the Trump Presidential Library at the end of his term, so we all benefit from it. In that sense, I guess. Also, Qatar definitely doesn't want anything in return, wink, wink. So there's nothing to see here, folks. And on top of that, to make you feel even better about this, the gift was approved by Attorney General Pam Bondi, a former partner at Ballard, which lobbied on behalf of the Qatari government. So, you can take comfort knowing that somebody as neutral as her would never greenlight a gift from the foreign government she once lobbied for if she thought that it was being done to curry favor with the administration that she currently works for. Therefore, since it's being permitted by the Attorney General, who definitely doesn't have a conflict of interest herself, of course, Trump says that he'd be stupid to not accept this gift. According to Axios, he explained, "I think it's a great gesture from Qatar. I appreciate it very much. I would never be one to turn down that kind of an offer." Oh, we know, buddy. I mean, I could be a stupid person and say, no, we don't want a free, very expensive airplane. You could, which would be ethical, but we all know that you won't. But the other problem is that this is a violation of the U.S. Constitution, specifically the Emoluments Clause. Not that that's ever deterred Trump before, but nonetheless, Common Dreams reports Robert Weissman, co-president of the watchdog group Public Citizen, said in a statement that Trump's plan to accept a luxury plane from Qatar is blatantly unconstitutional, a textbook violation of the Emoluments Clause. The concern with foreign gifts is that they can sway a president's policy and pre-elections, and there's little doubt that Qatar wants to give Trump a palace in the sky for exactly that reason. And in addition to this gift, as AP reports, the Trump organization just struck a deal with Qatar at the end of May to build a golf resort in their country, which will net them lots of money in tourism dollars and also be beneficial for Trump and his family as well. So the obvious concern here is whether or not these business deals and gifts would influence Trump's decision-making as it relates to foreign policy regarding Qatar. But thankfully, the press secretary is assuring us that we have nothing to worry about.
What could you tell us about this luxury liner that looks like a hotel in the air?
Well, the Qatari government has graciously offered to donate a plane to the Department of Defense. The legal details of that are still being worked out. But of course, any donation to this government is always done in full compliance with the law. And we commit ourselves to the utmost transparency, and we will continue to do that.
Do you worry that if they give us something like this, they want something in return?
Absolutely not, because they know President Trump and they know he only works with the interests of the American public in mind.
Oh, okay. So since the administration that accepted this bribe says that there's nothing to be worried about, I guess there's nothing to be worried about. This is wild to me. And what's so funny is that Trump was apoplectic when a reporter dared to ask him about the unethical nature of this. Bro, this is the most obvious corruption that we've ever seen out in the open, but yet they are applauding themselves for being transparent. Yeah, you're being transparent, but it's transparently corrupt. Being transparent in and of itself isn't good if the thing that we can see you doing is bad, Donald Trump, but he doesn't get it. And he doesn't like that Democratic lawmakers, as well as media outlets, are sounding the alarm about how brazenly illegal and corrupt this is, which led to this rant from Trump on Truth Social, where he says, "So the fact that the Defense Department is getting a gift free of charge of a 747 aircraft to replace the 40-year-old Air Force One temporarily in a very public and transparent transaction so bothers the crooked Democrats that they insist we pay top dollar for the plane. Anybody can do that. The Dems are world-class losers. MAGA. I love how as time goes on, my Trump impression gets so much worse, but I mean, that's all you're going to get, so deal with it. But I mean, he's basically insinuating that Democrats would rather waste money and pay top dollar for a luxury plane that is being offered for free. But if I had to guess, they would say, well, you don't need this because Air Force One is the best of the best. So you don't need a luxury in the sky. I get that you're, accustomed to nice things and you shit in a gold toilet, but what's wrong with Air Force One? Just because it's old doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. But like the core problem that Democrats have, obviously, is that this is a brazen conflict of interest and it's unconstitutional. That is their main concern, not that, oh, we're going to pay, we have to pay if they don't give it to us. No, you don't need the fucking plane. But in a surprising turn of events, it's not just the Democrats who are concerned because some MAGA grifters, some of the biggest MAGA grifters, have decided to publicly denounce Trump's shamelessness. For example, Tim Pool responded to that Trump Truth Social by saying, it bothers basically everyone. And the biggest Trump bootlicker in the country, Laura Loomer, chimed in with a lengthy denunciation, writing, I love President Trump. I would take a bullet for him. That's weird. But I have to call a spade a spade. We cannot accept a $400 million, quote, gift from jihadists in suits. Oh, that's racist. The Qataris fund the same Iranian proxies as Hamas and Hezbollah who have murdered U.S. service members. The same proxies that have worked with the Mexican cartels to get jihadists across our border. That's bullshit. This is really going to be such a stain on the admin if this is true. Oh, this will be a stain. And I say this as someone who would take a bullet for Trump. We know you just said that. Holy shit. I'm so disappointed. This is unhinged, even if she's correct for the wrong reason. Mark Levin responded to her tweet with a ditto. He also passive-aggressively subtweeted Trump with articles about how Qatar is bad before going back to calling Democrats communists. And Laura Loomer made similar remarks about how Qatar funds the Muslim Brotherhood and ends by saying that this move helps to facilitate the, quote, Islamic takeover of our country. Yes, because by accepting this gift, Trump agrees to convert the country to Sharia law by 2026. Is that what she thinks is happening? So, I mean, as you can see, they're not necessarily against it for principled or legal reasons. They're against it because they view this through the lens of Muslims bad and not corruption bad. And that's obvious because if they were outraged by Trump's corruption in particular, they would have spoken out much sooner about the backdoor bribery scheme that he set up the day before he was sworn in. I'm, of course, talking about the Trump meme coin. And to his credit, Senator Chris Murphy has been the loudest at sounding the alarm about how this might be the most corrupt thing a president has ever done.
I mean, this is corrupt on its face, but it is likely illegal. You probably don't have to scratch very deep to find an instance where the president has received an enormous infusion of cash to his crypto coin from a CEO or foreign oligarch who is then asking for a favor from Donald Trump. I mean, this is unethical, corrupt, but likely illegal if any prosecutor worth their salt was trying to even scratch.
It's a bribe. I mean, and nothing matters, I guess, because he can just do crimes now. Yeah. Wasn't he supposed to be the law and order president? Wasn't that the whole thing? Republicans are constantly talking about this unless, the laws apply to you.
Scratch the surface. But to the extent it's not already apparent that a president of the United States should not be running a backdoor bribery scheme, the equivalent of posting your Cash app on the White House webpage, then we should make it crystal clear that that's illegal. If we were doing our job, we would pass legislation saying that no president can monetize the White House by owning a crypto coin that he uses the official channels of the White House to sell to the public, to CEOs, to Saudi princes, and anybody else who has business before the United States Congress, so before the White House.
That sounds pretty bad. I mean, can you imagine if Biden did this? If he set up a meme coin the day before he was sworn in? Republicans would never shut the fuck up about this, and rightfully so. I would join them in their condemnation of that overt corruption. But since Trump is doing it, well, they haven't said a peep about it, and they probably won't. So what's happening here is some right-wing grifters, no Republicans, but some grifters managed to accidentally end up on the right side of an issue because of their anti-Arab racism, which is sad, but on brand for these people. To get them to be concerned with actual corruption would require a Democrat to do said corruption. So they're right, albeit for the wrong reason. Nonetheless, they're still right to call him out, but that's where they may have went wrong because the few Trump cultists who spoke out were met with pretty mixed reactions. Some Trump supporters agreed with them and thanked them for being brave enough to call out Donald Trump. Others were very mad that they dared to criticize Daddy. To show you what I mean, some of the top responses to Tim Pool were not happy about his position, writing, Trump is going to squeeze every country to get as much as he can from them to make up for the years of unfair trade. Oh, so this is 4D chess, I guess. He is right. Only morons are upset that he didn't pay. They would be so much happier if we spent $400 million in tax dollars on it. We don't need the jet, period. Why aren't they pointing this out? This person says, what bothers you more, Timmy? A temporary Air Force One we get for free that actually is up to date and will then be turned over to government? Or Boeing pissing away $3.9 billion of taxpayer money and still can't seem to finish the job? Another person adds, no, it doesn't bother everyone. It bothers you, not me, not everyone. Psst. Sia replies, pointing out that the overwhelming majority of people in Tim Pool's replies were against him. Now, the responses to Mark Levin were much more measured, with people not feeling too strongly about it either way, but mildly opposing it. Laura Loomer, however, had some very different responses responses, we'll say, with people saying, aren't you Jewish? It's called diplomacy, and it's what Americans voted for. Laura, you attack Trump every day, yet claim to care about him. I disagree. If it pisses off liberals, I'm all for it. You're Jewish. Traitor. I suspect he has a plan, Laura. He knows better. You don't become a billionaire by making mistakes like that. My guess is it will be used by some part of the government for our benefit. Oh, I'm sure. Laura Loomer reminds me of the girl you date once. It doesn't go well, and you don't date again, but she spends the next 6 months trying to get back.
Did you see the Higher tweet? Is that true? Did Higher actually make some joke about being impregnated by Elon, then deleted the tweet? I saw the tweet made that was like, hi Elon, or hi Elon, or something like that, and then the tweet deleted thing, but I don't know if it's real. Yeah, I need verification on that one. Gordon, thank you so much for the $5. I suggest a view of Belle of the Ranch's Air Force One video. This luxury liner might not come with a command center or an aircraft countermeasure. So you mean in terms of its use as the actual Air Force One? Belle of the Ranch, Air Force One. That's the list.
In your life. It's horrible to go through if you're the guy, but fascinating if you're the friend listening about it. Pretty sure this is fake. But to be fair, there was a sizable portion of people agreeing with her, saying that they didn't trust the plane because it was coming from Qatar, and pointing out that the optics were bad. So there was a range of responses, from agreement to disagreement to straight up anti-Semitism from Nazis who coincidentally aligned with the Trump movement on a lot of things, which is interesting. I wonder why that is. But I mean, this kind of factionalization happens when your entire political project is based on a cult of personality. So many people will never be able to fight through the cognitive dissonance and accept that Trump did something bad. And if they see something that they don't necessarily agree with or instinctively feel icked out by, I mean, they're just going to think that Trump has a broader plan, just like God always has a plan. And they're too stupid to comprehend the 5D chess moves that Donald Trump is making. So they just have to trust the plan and shut the fuck up and accept that daddy can never do no wrong. I mean, there's no underlying principles driving MAGA. It's just straight up racist grievance politics. That's what this entire movement is based around. But in the end, I'm not talking about noteworthy Trump supporters calling him out to give them credit. Don't get it twisted. Because believe it or not, I don't think you have to hand it to the worst people in the world, especially if they're accidentally right in this isolated instance because of their hatred of Arabs. If they truly cared about corruption, they would have condemned Trump's emoluments clause violations in his first term, and the way that Elon Musk systematically gutted agencies overseeing his corporations just weeks into Trump's second term. Not to mention Trump basically doing an ad read for Tesla on the White House lawn, which is unethical at a minimum since Elon Musk was his biggest donor in the last election cycle. So these people don't actually care about Trump being corrupt, and to the extent that they care about conflicts of interest and bribery, it's only insofar as they think Democrats are guilty of doing it. But again, the reason why I'm talking about this is not to give these people credit. It's to point out that when the people who are destroying our country are at each other's throats, you step back and you let them fight. And to the extent that you do intervene, make sure it's only to fan the flames further and not join and support the side that's less wrong, even if they're technically right for all the wrong reasons. With that being said, grab your popcorn and enjoy the show.
Oh my God.
I'm gonna come.
Do not come.
Welcome to the
Oh shit. More Perfect Union finally released their Luigi video. I actually really wanted to see this. I heard it's been in the works for a bit. Hold on. Yeah, Mike's outros, I tell you, every time.
Right now, Luigi Mangione is being arraigned for his alleged role in the murder of Brian Thompson. There are a good amount of protesters, but honestly, I think there's more media people.
This trial is taking place in the middle of a much larger conversation about United Health Group. The outrage spans from activists,
insurance companies delay care for most people that leave the hospital,
to United's own shareholders, local lawmakers, and even Steve Bannon.
There's clearly a seething anger of people that don't feel that the insurance companies and the medical companies are looking out for their interests.
But with so much attention on this trial, I wanted to know, has it done anything to stop United's own quest to control every aspect of the American healthcare system?
I worked on a video investigating United Healthcare 2 years ago, together with fellow producer Sean Morrow. That video got a resurgence of attention in the last few months, and the comments made it very clear that beyond the anger, people were looking for real change.
A major debate has erupted over the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson over who exactly is the real villain. There's a callousness to the industry as a whole.
It delivers efficiency, but their definition of efficiency is returning as much value to their investors as possible.
I wanted to talk to Sean about a real-world example of what that change could look like.
So Alec, I see you've got this new spicy United Health story to share.
I'm gonna tell you a story that I got obsessed with. It's got everything. It's got pissed off patients.
Why are all the doctors leaving?
It's got burned out doctors.
If they're a public company, they've got to please the shareholders.
It's got healthcare lobbyists.
The purpose of them opposing the bill was so that this wouldn't become a national model that other states would follow.
And actually, this one might have a happy ending.
This story is going to take us 3,000 miles away from New York to the state of Oregon. For 30 years, the city of Eugene has had this trusted institution serving a ton of its residents. It's called the Oregon Medical Group.
Some of these patients had 15-year relationships or longer with their doctors.
And that all changed in 2020 when it was bought by Optum.
Optum is, of course, owned by United Health Group.
I found a doctor at Optum with the answers I needed.
Optum buys Oregon Medical Group and causes this huge chain of events that causes thousands of people to lose their doctor.
This is just a technical thing. I don't like the kind of format of this. It kind of feels like the way TMZ presents stories, where they have to show you the inside first, being like, I got a huge story for you. Okay, cool. Tell us how you're going to blow everyone's mind. So here's the stuff that's in it. Because I think this story most likely is going to speak for itself, because More Perfect Union just pumps out really good research on a lot of these topics.
Oregon Medical Group was bought out by Optum in 2020.
They often
a lot
don't
of
credit the
doctors
people involved.
quit,
That's not
leaving
good.
patients without a new doctor.
One of these people is this woman named Lisa Fragola. She was actually diagnosed with breast cancer, and around the same time she lost her primary care provider.
I had received a letter from Oregon Medical Group saying I no longer had a provider. So when I got an irregular mammogram, I experienced a lot of anxiety and fear because I wasn't sure how to navigate my health care.
And this isn't just a Pacific Northwest problem, right? Optum is buying up doctors' offices across the country. They're, I think, one of the largest employers of physicians nationwide now.
They're the largest.
Since the acquisition, the group has lost 32 doctors, leaving remaining staff overwhelmed and patients without care even a year later.
In Eugene, these doctors really did not like practicing medicine for the sake of United Healthcare shareholders.
My office has heard from a couple dozen physicians. They describe the ways, both small ways and big ways, where they feel their independence is being corroded by the ownership structures in place.
That's Ben Bowman, the majority leader for Oregon's House of Representatives.
The patient might not know that it was a corporate owner, for example, who said you only get 15 minutes with your doctor, even though the doctor might believe that the patient needs 20 or 30 minutes to have a proper exam.
So a bunch of doctors did the hard thing. They just left, leading to this huge shortage of doctors in Eugene.
Thousands of people living in Eugene lost their primary care provider. They would call up for an appointment and they would be told that their doctor no longer works.
You know what sucks is no matter how many times the story keeps playing itself out, because, the public institution privatized, all of a sudden disastrous, when the profit motive basically drives all of the decision making in the company. But people keep believing the sales pitch. Oh, we need to introduce private healthcare to help undo the burden that the public healthcare system is suffering under. That way, more people will have more options. It's going to offer better healthcare for everybody. It's just such an easy, simple pitch. And that makes sense, because then rich people can use the private facility, and then people who can't afford a private facility can use the public facility, and then the rich people don't have to clog up the public facility. It's perfect.
There. What that really stood out for me was just how many people felt, I guess I would use the word deceived or misled. Quite a few reported this to me, that they were told it was because of their insurance. And so they could change to an insurance plan that would help them access care, which just happened to be owned by United Healthcare.
So Optum basically made it so hard for these doctors to work by making these ridiculous demands to save money, not for patient care or anything like that, but just to enrich these shareholders, that the doctors were just like, we can't do this anymore, which is a totally understandable and respectable decision.
As we have previously reported, letters from Optum informed former OMG patients their doctors were leaving, and no replacements were available.
The most wild thing about this story is that the doctors couldn't even tell their patients that they had left. They had signed these non-competes, so they couldn't tell them, and they couldn't practice in the area. If you were someone like Lisa Fragola with a new cancer diagnosis, you may not have known what was going on.
It's taken many people in my community 2 years to find a new primary care provider.
There was one local news story about a woman who couldn't refill a medication because she just couldn't get a doctor at Oregon Medical Group. Lots of other people, including Lisa, received a letter.
It basically said, we don't have anybody to assign to you, so good luck and take off.
Not only did they lose their doctor, but they were told their doctor couldn't say like, hey, I'm going to this new place, right?
Yeah, and as I understand it, with any non-compete, like that's poaching clients. That's competing with Optum. So they couldn't do that, even though there was no doctors at Oregon Medical Group to be able to see these people.
We are absolutely at an inflection point in this country when it comes to the corporatization of healthcare, without a doubt in my mind. There is a fundamental tension between a clinician who has an ethical duty to their patients, who took an oath to serve the interests of their patients, and fiduciary responsibility of a corporation or private equity firm who has a duty to their shareholders to maximize their profit.
It's not just Oregon.
So much of it to me comes down to dollars and cents, to the fact that we've put like a profit motive in something that shouldn't be about profit. It should be about care.
There's this report by Congressman Pat Ryan. He has a lot of constituents in the Hudson Valley area. Up there, Optum purchased practice.
NHS doctors are amazing. Like, I just call up with a boo-boo and then I get an expert for nothing but a national insurance. A lawyer costs like $1 zillion and they're lower IQ on average. I guess there is no public lawyer system available.
This is like Caremount Medical, Crystal Run Healthcare, a ton of practices all up and down the Hudson Valley. Congressman Ryan conducted a survey of 1,800 people, and 41% reported that the quality of their healthcare went down after Optum acquired the practice. And Optum's whole thing is they're going to make things more efficient and cheaper, but Ryan's office is finding that not only is the care getting worse, it's getting more expensive. So it is getting more efficient and it is getting more cost effective for the executives, for the shareholders, but not for the patients, the people that a healthcare company should be theoretically taking care of.
Meanwhile, the Justice Department seems to be trying to make an example out of Luigi Mangione. Pam Bondi explicitly told federal prosecutors to seek the death penalty, which led to what I think is an unexpected statement from the lawyer of a man in a murder trial. While claiming to protect against murder, the federal government moves to commit the premeditated, state-sponsored murder of Luigi. By doing this, they are defending the broken, immoral, and murderous healthcare industry that continues to terrorize the American people.
Back to Oregon. Lisa Fragla.
Meet Kenyon has a new video on Gooners. Is it? It's 20 minutes. He's got like, his animation style is pretty like incredible. The fact that it's just one person doing like really, really, really well done animation. But the last one was 2 minutes and 35 seconds. The one before that was 3 minutes and 35 seconds. The one on Ozempic, then the one on JD Vance. The one on Gooners is 18 minutes.
Was able to get the care she needed outside of an
It's heavily
Optum-run
censored. Yeah, I'm not going to play
facility.
that on stream.
And then she decided to run for office. She ran for the Oregon House of
I feel like that's one of those videos that just really rolls the dice.
Representatives.
Lisa Fragla.
Like the ones that aren't about Gooners roll the dice. Where you're just like, oh, yeah, no, I probably can't show this on stream. Even Blurred, I probably can't show this on stream.
To run Monday afternoon.
Investments in education, investments in housing production, and making sure that we have good paying jobs and
18 minutes is longer
family
than any Gooner will
benefits
last.
for the people that live in our community.
Only the edgers can last
While
that
she was
long.
running for office and knocking on doors, she heard so many stories of people who had also lost their doctors because of the actions of Optum. And she won, and with the majority leader over there, Ben Bowman, they're supporting this legislation to make sure that corporations like United cannot dictate how doctors practice medicine.
Most states in the country have what's called a corporate practice of medicine law or corporate practice of medicine doctrine. Basically what it says is that physicians or advanced practice providers have to own and control medical clinics. These are non-controversial laws. Republican states, Democratic states, they're widespread throughout the country. The problem is there are loopholes in these laws where basically large corporations and private equity firms have figured out that they can be in compliance with the law on paper by having a friendly physician or captive physician own the practice.
Representative Bowman's bill would change that by restricting corporations, like Optum, from taking decision-making away from doctors and clinical decisions. It also restricts non-compete and non-disclosure agreements, which caused many of the problems and confusion in Eugene.
Senate Bill 951 was introduced to address a rising trend in this country that is happening not in response to public policy choices, but in response to profiteering from some very large corporations. At its core, the bill is just about ensuring doctors are the ones making decisions in exam rooms.
A version of that bill was actually introduced last year, went up for a vote, and passed the House.
Great, problem solved.
Not quite.
Okay.
We had bipartisan support from senators of both parties, but because of some procedural maneuvering, the bill died without a vote in the Senate.
That seems incredibly unfair, like a small minority of the government there completely changing everything.
Good news though, Bowman is trying again with support from some newly electeds like Lisa Fragola, but has attracted the attention of some pretty powerful people.
The head of Optum Oregon said, and I quote, "The experiment of physician-directed healthcare
in this country over 50 or 70 years didn't work. It didn't work.
It didn't work." That was his quote. I was told by one lobbyist that the purpose of them opposing the bill was so that this wouldn't become a national model that other states would follow. That was explicitly stated to me in my legislative office with my staff present.
A similar bill passed in California in 2024, but got vetoed by Gavin Newsom. Another bill was introduced in Vermont as well.
And so while United Healthcare, like the insurance branch of this conglomerate, is trying to squeeze more money out of people with all these denials, another part of the larger umbrella company is trying to protect this other part of their business where they can profit off of healthcare clinics, the actual care, by slashing staff, slashing time with doctors, and maybe even defrauding Medicare.
If United Healthcare, in addition to doing the insurance, started buying up doctors' offices and pharmacies, how would you feel about that?
That seems like it would be bad, like a monopoly on healthcare by companies that are already profiting off of denying care to people.
If I told you United was already the largest employer of physicians in the United States and already owns pharmacies like Optum, how does that make you feel?
Oh, nauseated but not surprised.
Senate Bill 9.
Yeah, I think that pretty much describes 2025. Nauseated but not surprised.
51A, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed.
So they just voted on the Oregon bill in the Senate. That's where it died last year. And I want to play this clip for you.
Recognize Senator Bonham.
The fundamental question, of course, is should large conglomerate multinational corporation decide whether or not my mom gets a new hip when she breaks her hip? I don't think anybody's going to say yes.
That is a Republican.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of like anti-corporate attitude is kind of becoming more prevalent.
Watching this, it was kind of incredible seeing bipartisan agreement that corporations should not dictate medicine, even if their solutions were different. But nonetheless, the Democrat version of the bill passed the Senate 21-8.
Now it goes to the House?
Yeah, and they are very confident it will pass there.
And there's a ton of other developments that I feel like aren't getting the kind of attention they deserve. There was actually a push by the shareholders to audit their prior authorization process. United lobbied the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, to block the vote, and then the whole thing just got withdrawn.
The state of Arkansas just banned pharmacy benefit managers, who negotiate drug prices and reimburse pharmacies, from operating their own pharmacies. One of the big players in that space is United, which often pushes patients to their own Optum pharmacies. Do you think the attention the trial is attracting is going to help healthcare reform in the United States?
I think so, because we need attention somewhere, right?
Talking to all these people, it's not just anger. I mean, there is anger, but there's also hope. Luigi's trial, I'm hearing, was just set for 2026. We're gonna keep following the story. So if you have healthcare stories to share, and especially if you work inside the
Does anyone know, is that going to be a televised trial? The Luigi one? Is it something that like myself and I think everyone else is going to be covering live? Or is it one of the ones where it's closed and then we have to look at just court sketches, incredible court sketches?
Insurance industry,
2026,
send us a line, stories@perfectunion.us.
I doubt they'd allow that. Yeah, that makes sense. Fair enough. This is the Mario song? What's the Mario song? I have no idea what I'm seeing, and I can't begin to comment on it. I just, yeah. There's, again, I'm nearing the end of my stream. I don't think I have time to do the Goonernomicon, and I can't get started now with whatever this is, you know? I have no idea what I am seeing or what it is related to. Wavell1940, thanks for resubscribing with the Prime. Drew from New Jersey, thank you for subscribing with the Prime. Looney Tunes 9000, thanks for resubscribing. Asian Sailor, thank you for resubscribing as well. Omega Star, thanks for giving it a tier 1 sub. Depressed Progressive again, thanks for resubscribing. Sorry I missed all those prior during the segment. I am going to have to raid into Fran, so you can continue your day with Franny Fio. They're gonna hire AI sketch artists indeed. I don't think this was AI. I think this was pre-AI. Everybody, can you thank the mods? I will be back tomorrow. I will finally, hopefully, cover the Goonernomicon. It's an hour and 48 minutes right now, and then I won't have time to go pick up Chico. So, I love you all. You're valid. I will see you tomorrow. And oh yeah, I can't raid into Fran. It's over. Oh, all right. Well, I'll send you 2 carabines instead. There you go. I didn't know they just ended. It was bad timing. I'm going to carabines instead. I think that's it. You can also, there's Hassan, there's Red Rants, Link to the Pabst, a lot of great shows going down right now. All right. Yeah, I will see you all tomorrow, everybody.